Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our newest video, the start of a playthrough for Final Fantasy, specifically the Pixel Remaster version.
That's right, and if we find it fun enough, then we might even go through the whole game or even later installments of the franchise.
And since there are 4 Warriors of Light, we've added our 4th member to complete our team, Ben Shapiro.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
But enough about you. I'm naming myself as the Warrior, the strongest player in the game.
Yeah, me too.
For no particular reason relating to skin color, I'm going to be the Black Mage.
And I'm going to be the healer, the White Mage.
With that, it is time for us to begin the playthrough of Final Fantasy.
I've heard there are a lot of Final Fantasy games. That's kind of weird when the title of the game would mean it's the last game.
Joe, you buffoon, it's not referring to the last adventure the characters will have. It's just part of the title. The other games are generally not connected in story anyway, so it is weird, but since the games have been out for decades, it's not something that should still be confusing.
Okay, calm down. I'm just not familiar with this series. Can one of you explain what we will be doing?
We will be going through the game as long as we are able to, though we'll not necessarily show every moment of the whole adventure. If something important occurs, such as getting a new spell or going through a dungeon, then that will be included. But if we need to stop to heal or grind a lot of enemies for experience, then we'll cut some of it out. This would leave most of the entertaining parts in while cutting out the unnecessary parts.
Also keep in mind, the Pixel Remaster does not include the extra dungeons included in the Dawn of Souls version of the game, and keeps the original magic system where each spell has a certain level and amount it can be cast, compared to later games where it was changed.
That is important to know, but we haven't even mentioned the story that's occurring in front of us now.
The world is going through a rough time, and some people need to fix the world, those people being us. Mainly me, but I suppose you all can help.
The text says, 4 Warriors of Light shall come, not Donald and his friends.
I know, but all of us should be aware I have the best job class, hence why Joe copied me.
I didn't have that many options.
You would have made an excellent thief considering you stole the election from me.
Donald, you know that isn't true. I am not a fan of the way Joe is handling America, but he still won legitimately, even if you don't like it.
That is fake news, and I expected better from you.
If we could actually stop arguing and get back into the game, that would be fantastic. We're about to get past the introduction and move on to the gameplay.
But isn't that what the people are here for? Us to make references towards our real-life events while doing activities that we would not normally do alone, much less together?
The people want us to save the world by restoring the crystals and fighting off the enemies that are all across every continent here.
Somehow I don't think shopping is the first thing we should be doing. We should go to the huge castle we started near and get the king to let us off this island.
I would rather fight them off with a hammer or sword rather than the spare McDonald's hamburger you keep in your pocket.
I suppose you're right. You're just going to throw your dementia pills. And I don't think that will be effective towards the goblins and wolves.
I'm going to be using my magic, so I won't need as many strong weapons, which will come in handy for the bosses and normal enemies that are strong to physical attacks.
I will not be as useful in combat until the later portions of the game when I get my more powerful magic, but I'll be healing all of you when you inevitably come across attacks that would otherwise kill you.
Thanks for the rundown on your roles. I think it's time for us to go to that castle before Joe falls asleep.
Would I've never been more awake to play Dragon Quest in my life?
Just let me get my black magic and I'll be ready to go.
Leave it to Obama to make this about skin color for no reason than to virtue signal and divide us.
I didn't choose to be black, and it's the only magic I can use.
You did choose to be the Black Mage at the beginning of the video.
You know what I meant. I wasn't going to be a red mage that doesn't master any magic, a monk that uses no weapons, thief that only runs away, or a third warrior.
Can we actually pay attention to the king instead of you two arguing about nonsense?
Oh, he's taken the princess. I'm going to save her and sniff her hair as reward for being the knight in shining armor.
Joe, at this point, I think we should just leave her to Garland and let the world suffer if you're going to be doing that to her.
I will cast Faraga on you if you sniff her, and we'll be the 3 Warriors of Light.
Okay, fine. I'll try not to do anything crazy, but no promises.
Actually, if you do, then I can use that against you in my 2024 campaign, so go right ahead.
Don't be giving him that advice, otherwise we'll all be banned from Cornelia forever.
I'm so conflicted on my decisions.
Hey, it's our first battle of the series, and it's all of Joe's legitimate voters.
I had way more than that, like at least 2 more.
You definitely had more than that, although I'm not sure how you managed to when you act like you are.
I'm not acting. This is how I always am.
That is significantly worse. On a less concerning topic, I do want to also mention we are using the Pixel Remaster exclusive functions that allow multiplied experience and gil after each battle to lower the grinding during and in between videos.
I suppose that's okay since it just speeds up the progression as long as it doesn't become too easy.
No, I don't think it will be too easy, but if it does, then that will make the journey even shorter than it already would be.
I would like to mention both myself and Obama have been taken out by these horses.
That just leaves the warriors whom are superior to finish the fight.
I think you mean warrior and inferior poser illegitimate president who sniffs princesses.
That was not what I meant at all, actually.
If Joe and Donald are our last hopes, then the world is doomed.
They might actually pull out a victory if they get lucky enough with the horses missing and causing low damage.
I don't need luck. I have all the skill I need.
Yeah, I do too.
If you look more closely, you just got knocked out, so you have no skill. The superior president, Donald Trump, has saved the group and obtained the experience he deserves.
I think we should level up a few more times off screen so we don't lose against our fight with Garland. Otherwise, we'd have a repeat, and Donald's ego will increase larger than ever before.
Let's take down this guy.
If we don't get interrupted by a battle right before, at least, that is inconvenient timing.
They might be the only characters dumber than our other warrior here.
Hey, that's me.
Guys, I have a strategy to beat Garland so he doesn't knock us all down. I'm going to distract him with facts and logic while the rest of you commence the attacks.
It's worth a shot. Do what you can to him.
Gladly. Garland, let's say hypothetically you deserve to be alive, which you don't. Each of us is so much more successful than you are. You live alone in a dark, broken down house filled with bats and zombies while I have an incredibly successful show called Daily Wire, where I am the true alpha male against the liberals. If that wasn't enough to make you feel bad, 3 of the most divisive presidents in decades are here and are all superior, which is saying a lot since one of them cast bomb on Yemen villages, one got impeached twice and lost re-election, and one plans on sniffing the princess we're trying to save.
Ooh, you got him good, and now we get to save the whole world. That was a good game, guys. I can't wait to play the sequels.
Joe, you demented clown, we are not done with the game. We did save the princess, but we still have to restore power to the crystals, which we haven't even started on. All of this was to get the king's subjects to build a bridge to the other continent for us to continue our journey.
We didn't mention it earlier, but this is actually a very small area to travel on. And though it would be better to have the bridge built while we tried to save her, we had to prove our ability first.
That is weird why he wouldn't have built the bridge before all of this happened, but perhaps the new connection can establish trade systems with nearby continents for a more diverse ecosystem.
I was thinking the same thing.
Somehow I doubt that, but if you say so.
We need to leave before Joe gets what he wants with the princess.
She's calling me over. I knew she'd want to give a reward for our troubles.
Relax, she's just giving us a loot, which will no doubt come in handy later on.
I'll be back one day for you, and then it's Joeing time.
I swear we should never be allowed back at this rate.
We should only need to go back here 1 or 2 more times, since there is an item that we can't access until the next video.
How do you know it's in the next video? Are you looking into the future or something?
No, it's this memory I have, kind of like we've already done this before, and this game's events are some time loop or something.
That makes no sense at all. Now I'm confused.
You're saying that like it's not an incredibly common event.
Forget about that. These guys are working fast. I should have hired them to build my wall. It would have been done in a month.
You do realize these characters are not real, and building a wall or a bridge would take far longer than it would in a game released on the NES originally?
What can I say? A man can dream. Joe does it frequently when he falls asleep, as often as he does.
Hey, I am not asleep. I have been paying close attention to our playthrough of Dungeons and Dragons.
Although Joe is terribly wrong like he often is, this game does have elements based off Dungeons and Dragons, so he isn't as wrong as he otherwise would be, which is normally 100% wrong.
Can we stop insulting me and cross the bridge now?
I don't see why we can't do both at the same time.
Donald, I hope all of these enemy encounters exclusively attack you for the entirety of our playthrough.
I do have to wonder, what exactly are these goblins guarding? I also noticed the guards are a distinctly different color than the standard goblins. Is there a hierarchy of goblins where ones with a specific skin color are treated better? That seems like a very racist system, and I am happy to dismantle it by killing all of them equally.
That is a strange solution, but it is effective nonetheless, so I approve.
I wasn't actually asking for your input, but I guess that's good to know anyway.
And now with the goblins eviscerated, we can begin the main journey by crossing the bridge.
This reminds me of a story from my youth. I was crossing the street when I looked at my house in the distance, kind of like this scene here. A car swerved out of the way since I was in the middle of the road, and he hit a pole, crashing the car. He went to the hospital shortly after, and I never saw him again.
Joe, that is a terrible story. Has nothing to do with this at all. And you ruined what could have been a wholesome moment for the four of us by telling some morbid story nobody asked for.
We can still probably salvage this. And so their quest began. As the four warriors of light, they felt overwhelmed by the great task destiny had placed before them.
They did not even know the true significance of the 4 crystals they held for Joe's son Hunter to sell for his substance abuse habit.
That's not what it says.
The crystals that once, long ago, held a light that shone before Joe's son Hunter to sell for his substance abuse habit that only I am worried about for some reason.
There is no way this game could have known that would happen.
The time for his rehab had come. The time to cast off the veil of addiction and bring the world once more into sobriety.
That was the worst introduction I've ever heard, and I get the feeling the game didn't really say all of that. I think you changed the words around.
No, I was just reading it as it was. I must have not had my glasses on, so I may have misread a couple words, but it was otherwise spot on.
Now that this scene was entirely ruined by you two, I'll just have to hope everything else that comes after doesn't get tainted by Joe's stories or Donald's inability to read.
Hey, I can read just fine. It's only my glasses being off that caused me to mess up a few words. But I think my interpretation made it more interesting than it already was.
Now that I think about it, I don't think you wear glasses.
He was clearly lying to cover up the fact he wanted to insult your son's substance abuse issues, and it shouldn't have taken you this long to figure that out.
I think it would be best if we all moved on from our predicament and continued with the game. We will be encountering some new enemies, and our goal is to reach the next town, since we'll be able to get some new equipment and magic there.
I can't wait for us to get more magic, so maybe by the final part, Ben will actually be somewhat helpful in combat.
I will admit that while I do have difficulties inflicting damage in fights, I think it is unfair to be against me when I have the unique ability to heal without using items.
Once we get better items, your skills are useless, since we will soon have enough money to buy enough high potions for the whole game, meaning you should have picked a different class.
Then perhaps I won't heal you if you get poisoned or knocked out, since you're being like that towards me.
That's fine. I can just use my Phoenix Down or antidote, making your lack of cooperation a non-issue.
Can you two please stop arguing? I just want us to get through the game with our friendship still relatively intact.
This is very relevant to the game. I'm stating facts about how Ben is a useless party member since items replace him entirely. But I should also mention how Joe has nothing unique about him besides being a lower level than me.
It's not my fault you picked the warrior when I was going to already. I can be just as useful as you are.
The only way you'll be useful is if you get knocked out, so we each get more experience individually, making us level up more quickly and leave you in the dust.
I'm going to buy Blizzard so I can get you to chill out.
That's the second worst joke I've heard, the first being Joe's presidency.
I think it's time we all start paying attention to what is happening on the screen, as we are about to lead the way into a battle so we can access a ship. This will allow us to expand our travels and search unknown areas.
Yeah, I suppose you are right. Are there any special strategies we need to employ for this battle?
Besides keeping auto battle on with the basic attacks we have already been using the past several minutes, there's nothing really new. Most of our encounters will be like this admittedly, though some special attention has to be done for the bosses at the end of each dungeon, primarily the ones guarding the crystals.
I suppose you're right. I'm hoping each major encounter won't have so many enemies. I can't handle all 9 of these guys on screen since they outnumber us.
Relax, they're already going down. They don't have the quality of fighters on our side. Mainly me, they just have higher quantity, which isn't the best option for them.
Oh yeah, they are done now. We'll be able to sail the seas. I'm so excited to travel the world.
Is there going to be an ice cream shop in the next town? I could really go for some mint chocolate chip right about now.
If it will distract you enough so I don't have to hear your voice for a whole video, then I would be so happy to visit that ice cream shop every chance possible.
Considering how this video is already over 20 minutes long and the future videos probably being around the same length of time, he would likely need to have more than 1 ice cream cone per video, even if he eats it very slowly.
No, it's fine. I can make an ice cream cone last an hour if I try hard enough. I know it starts to melt after less than 10 minutes of holding it, but I am skilled in making it last. It does tend to drip a lot, so I catch it with my hand and put it back into the cone. I usually have to repeat this several times by the end to where it's not even cold anymore. By the 30-minute mark, it is not cold at all. So I put it back in my freezer to get cold. Then I finished that part off.
I was already sick of your useless story back at the bridge, but that one was somehow even worse, and I plan on throwing you overboard once we get on this ship.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree this time. Your stories provide no actual value. And I'm considering having us go along with 3 characters and ignoring the prophecy altogether.
Technically, there's already only 3 warriors of light, if you really think about it.
What's that supposed to mean?
It's just that you're not really light Barak. I knew it was going to come up at some point.
The prophecy calling us the warriors of light is referring to the light we will bring back to the world after the disasters in the introduction, not my skin color.
Did you honestly think he was going to come to that conclusion on his own? This is the same guy who had boxes of documents in the bathroom and stared into the sun during a solar eclipse.
I guess you're right. I was really expecting too much out of him. Thank you for steering me on the right track by lowering my expectations.
Hey, didn't you want to focus on the game earlier? Can we talk about these sharks that shouldn't be out of the water and yet are floating above the ship somehow?
I would like to, but now I get the impression you don't think I should be in the prophecy because of my skin color, and that is a bit distracting.
I would like to apologize for my statement. I was only bringing it up in a comedic manner, but now I can see it did not give that impression across. I hope we can move past this and consider it water under the bridge, or under the ship in this case, since we're not really near Cornelia's Bridge anymore.
That was very mature of you. I accept your apology and think it is best to move forward to get to the next town before the video is over.
Hey everyone, I just noticed something. Why hasn't Joe said anything in a while? Joe, are you still there?
Who am I?
Joe, did you fall asleep while we were battling these enemies?
No, I have been very attentive since we are playing my favorite game, Earthbound.
This looks absolutely nothing like Earthbound, and you have messed up the game name 3 times in the span of one video already. I knew you weren't the best with names, walking upstairs at Air Force One, riding a bicycle, amongst many other things, but I thought you'd at least remember the name of the game we're playing.
Hey, that sounds like something I'd say instead of you, Barak.
It normally isn't, but I think I have some pent-up frustration since he pulled the same kind of thing back when he was my vice president. He'd fall asleep during our briefings, and he kept filling the freezer with half-eaten ice cream since he kept forgetting to finish the rest of it.
Hey, let's be fair to me. I've stopped forgetting to take back the ice cream after I put it in. I'm still working on the not falling asleep, though.
Frankly, it's been a miracle your character hasn't fallen asleep every other battle. But I think that's only because auto battle is usually on.
If we can stop discussing Joe's sleeping habits, we have arrived at a town where we will ironically be sleeping to restore our health after the long trek from the waters. We'll be visiting the castle and buying some new items before the video ends to prepare ourselves for the next area.
That's great. I am enjoying this game so far. It looks quite a bit better than when it came out, but the graphics really are top-notch. I look forward to the next part where we can continue and hope our loyal fans also watch to see what happens next.
I hope so too. Also, I do have to make a quick cut here to do some battles and to get enough gil for the Fira and Thundara spells. I don't think we need to see too many more battles here.
That's a good idea. You'll probably need to do it more since we don't have enough gil for every useful spell and armor in the town, but we'll just have to work with what we have. I don't think it will be as much of a problem later in the series where we'll have so much more disposable income, but for now it's all right.
And now would be a good time to get some magic spells, making Ben slightly less useless by healing us more every time a spell is cast.
I will prove myself to you one day, not because I need your approval, but to show myself what I am capable of when I use my potent casting abilities.
We all know that's not happening. Also, before anyone mentions it, no, Donald, these gravestones are not where my votes came from. I knew you would bring it up if I didn't.
I was just going to mention how the text mentioning Link was a reference to the Legend of Zelda. But now that you mention it, you probably did get a lot of votes from fictional and dead people. I'd estimate at least 1/3 or so.
I think now is a good time to segue into a better topic, the castle we will be entering. I think it would be best to check it out and see if anyone needs something before going into the cave at the far side of the continent.
Yeah, once some of us get some armor, that could be a good idea. We probably won't run into any monsters there, but since we're so close, it can't hurt to try anyway. Besides, we're pretty overleveled as it is already.
These items here are so expensive. If only there was a way to get all of my billions converted into gil, so we're able to buy everything, that would be nice. Not that we really need it, since we have a multiplier for our gil and experience from battles. but I'd always like to get the best weapons when I can.
While that can't happen, it would be strange to put in a pay-to-win feature for a game this old, so I'm glad that isn't an option. Unlike more recent releases where microtransactions are overly intrusive to the experience.
Whoa, this kid has been asleep for 5 years straight due to a curse? He's probably the only character less awake than Sleepy Joe here.
No one asked you to compare Donald. Anyway, we should get a way to defeat the person who caused that curse. Maybe that will make him wake up.
If I remember correctly, that doesn't exactly happen, but you are pretty close. We essentially have to go into a cave to get the item inside it, defeat Astos, the one who caused the curse to the kid, and then find an item to wake him up.
Hey, don't spoil the game. I want to be surprised by what happens since we'll probably get all of that done in the next video.
This game has been out almost as long as I've been alive. It's not much of a spoiler at this point.
It's all right, Ben. He will probably just forget what he heard in a couple seconds anyway. So it's fine if we tell him things.
What are you talking about me forgetting things? I don't remember forgetting about something.
Yes, Joe, not remembering something is what forgetting is, but in a desperate attempt to steer our commentary back on track before the video ends, how are you all liking the game so far?
I did say I was enjoying it earlier, though I don't know if my opinion would change by playing an earlier iteration of the game instead of this one.
I am liking it too, although since there are extras in different versions of the game, I'm a little disappointed that we won't be experiencing that, though the main game should be good enough.
That is fair criticism. I do wish those were included here, and for the remainder of the games, but in an odd way, it does incentivize going through the different iterations of these games since there's almost always something new to experience.
I will rate this game 10 out of 10 if I get to sniff the princess's hair at some point.
Thank you for ruining the ending, Joe. We really needed that extra level of creepy to finish things off.
Speaking of thanking, thank you, Ben, for joining us on this adventure. You really bring a new dynamic to the whole adventure, and would be glad to have you back on in future games as well.
Anytime, Barack. I have to go destroy liberals with facts and logic, so I'll see you all later.
Yeah, I have to go be the president again. See you next time.
This was a great session. I look forward to more.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back soon with more of Final Fantasy. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our playthrough of Final Fantasy. We are going to be exploring a few new areas. The first one being this hole in the ground.
We will be changing a few details to see if they work better for the viewers. More of the battles will be cut out due to most of them amounting to the same attacks without a lot of variation. Some of them, such as newer enemies, will be left in, and more important battles won't be skipped. That, and we'll cut out trips to certain areas that don't have anything interesting happening.
Also, I think we should mention that Barack forgot to turn encounters on. I would criticize him on his lack of planning, but if we're cutting out more battles anyway, it shouldn't be a major issue.
Oh yeah, my bad. I'll be sure to make it less obvious when I turn off the encounters.
Never mind the encounters. What are we doing here? I can't see much use for us traveling in a hole filled with monsters.
Our goal in here is to get the crown hidden somewhere in the lower floors. This crown will be given to a character later on, whom, after a few more steps, will allow us to wake up the prince from the previous video and finally be able to escape the section of water outside the nearby castle.
That's good to know, but who goes through the trouble of hiding a crown in a cave? It's strange how it even would have gotten here. Was this explored in the prequel game, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin?
I don't think it was. Granted, I got bored of that game after a while. And though I finished it, I didn't recall a lot of the main story events. Even if they did, we're not playing that for the channel, so it shouldn't be a problem here.
That's okay. I never played that one, and don't plan on it. Besides, I'm having a riot with all of these spiders here. What's next? Maybe some blue slime too, along with the green ones?
No, just skeletons, just like all of the skeletons in your closet that will be brought out when you get your 7th and 8th indictments.
Nobody asked you,
I bet that must be fun to deal with while you're at the golf course, you Oompa Loompa.
Wow, where did that come from? Joe said like 2 words up until now, and then he brings his roasts out.
Yeah, Joe, that was uncalled for. Yes, Donald may be the first president in our lifetime to get indicted and impeached twice and pay more money to Stormy Daniels than his own taxes
Fake
and
news,
bankrupt
Democrat
6 times.
bias.
But that's no reason to bring that up unwarranted.
Listen up, failures, you all need to stop arguing, otherwise we're never going to save the world.
We can absolutely do it without you since we're going to be on the last part before you make any real damage, and you're
Fake news,
replaceable
Democrat
by
bias.
basic items we can buy right now. While all of us are much more useful party members than you, maybe you can go watch the Barbie movie again and complain about it being woke on your site that nobody on the planet would pay for.
This is an absolute mockery of me, and I will not stand for this. You all owe me an apology right now, otherwise I will not heal any of you ever again.
Okay, how about this? I will apologize to you sincerely if you heal my poison that I recently acquired. It will be from the heart more than anything I've said before.
That is fine. I will heal your wounds, but don't expect me to be so agreeable next time.
I appreciate the healing. I would like to say I sincerely apologize. For bringing you on here, you are far more useless than I could have imagined. Get wrecked, plus I'm better, plus I'll knock you down, plus you're short.
This is an absolute mockery of me. I don't need to prove myself to you, but I'm going to anyway. I'll bet you'll have fun in prison and then nobody gets to heal you. Then again, nobody can heal that spray tan you put on yourself, you tub of lard.
Ooh, are you going to take that, Donald? He really got you good there.
Sleepy Joe, nobody asked you. And Ben, I swear I will break you so badly, even your wife, doctor, will have no idea what to do with you, since you won't even be recognized as a corpse.
Oh, really, what are you going to do? As long as I'm not near your golf course, I'm sure I'll be fine. But I guess if you fell on top of me, then your gut would be fatal. So perhaps you're right after all.
Okay. We need to calm down. We're getting so riled up insulting each other, we've been straying too far from the game. We'll never finish this if we're fighting each other.
I suppose you're right. I'm sorry for starting this between us. I've been so stressed out about being the president, but it was not a healthy way of dealing with that.
Yeah, I guess I was a little harsh too. Personally, I always vented on Twitter, and now I can use Truth Social, so it is well maintained. Ben, I'm sorry for what I said to you. Without you, we would be spending a lot more on healing items, and that wouldn't be good for us. You do have your place on the team, even if it's not as apparent in battles.
You're fine, Donald. I appreciate the words of support. I'm still here to show what I can do, but this isn't something I'm proving to you. It's to myself that I truly can contribute with the three of you.
You're all good, Ben. We haven't really mentioned it, but there's a lot of open room to explore here. All we need to do is get the crown. There's not an official boss fight. We will fight some special enemies, but not any that would be a considerable threat.
Speaking of which, I hope they're more entertaining than these slime enemies. It's good you're able to use magic to end them at the same time. Otherwise, we'd have to be here a lot longer.
For sure, it's interesting how we would have to fight them if it were only physical attacks on our party. I know there are some people who do specific party setups that make it more challenging, or even solo member playthroughs.
Those are very interesting indeed. But right now, we are almost done with getting the crown. We have to fight the Pisco demons.
Am I right in guessing these will be a little harder than the standard enemies since they are here for the specific purpose of guarding the crown?
You are correct, though. Honestly, we've been able to get through this cave with very little trouble. So I doubt these will be much worse.
They're already falling apart and we're barely even hurt. I'm sure we'll be just fine.
This last one will never survive my Barack Blizzard.
Even though that was a very cringy way of putting it, you did finish them off. And now we can progress with the next step in saving the prince.
That is right. First, we're going to heal off screen, and I'm going to buy some magic that I didn't earlier. Next, we will make our way towards the castle that is above the cave where we have not explored.
That sounds good. I imagine it will be a useful spell for you to get. I am curious, do you think we'll get any reward from the prince when we wake him up?
If this is anything like your idea of a reward from the princess and Cornelia, then I sincerely hope this world has its own version of the electric chair to put you into.
That is the best idea I've ever heard. If Barack gets to use Thundaga instead, that might be faster.
It's pronounced Thundaga, but yes, Joe, if that's what you meant, I'm aiming my lightning straight at you next time.
No, it wasn't anything like that. I just meant like, will he give us any gil or something else like that? I didn't mean something weird like you were all thinking.
That's good to hear. I thought I'd have to swing my sword on my own teammate next battle.
No, I'd prefer you save it for the actual enemies instead. We're about to fight one in this castle soon, so we'd better be ready.
Right, indeed. I'd imagine due to us having good levels for this point in the game, it won't pose much of a challenge, though.
This guy has a really weird castle placement. There's no other people around, so he's not really a king of anything.
Uh-oh, we fell into a trap.
No, I knew this would happen. He's going to be finished faster than Garland did. I'm confident none of us will even get knocked out in this fight. Are you all ready?
Yeah, let me get my roast on for a while so he won't be able to focus on us. Hey, Astos, you mama's so ugly, she's uglier than you. She's so fat when she goes to the inn, she takes up all 4 beds. She's so ugly I have to use an antidote on myself since my eyes feel poisoned. She's so dumb, she makes Biden look smart by comparison.
Wait, what?
She's so dumb when she fought Garland, she tried to put him on her door during Christmas. She's so slow, Barack had to use haste on her just to go to a normal speed.
All right, Ben, you've roasted his mother enough, which is strange since she's not even here, but the battle is finished.
Yeah, and aside from that personal jab at me, I think you did well in throwing off Astos while we laid the smackdown on him for a whole half a minute.
Sorry about that. When I get into my roasting zone, I lose all sense of what is and isn't appropriate to say, which includes my teammates sometimes getting in the crossfire.
That's all right. What's important is Astos is finished, and we get the Crystal Eye. Not sure what he was even doing with this, but I'm sure it'll be in better hands with us.
It will, of course. The game plan here on is this. We're going back up to the town further above and taking a different route to a cave. That is where we will put the eye.
That sounds fine, but I do have to wonder how all of these items get so misplaced. Is that the doing of the crystals losing power too? Or is that just a coincidence that so many things are happening separately?
I think the crystals are only directly responsible for things like the natural flow of the world, such as the oceans, winds, and earthquakes being different than normal, while there is still a lot of antics that don't directly connect to the main conflict.
That sounds about right. Now we are in Matoya's cave. She is the one we will be giving the eye to so she can see.
Hold up now, Barack. How can she see with a crystal eye? That sounds incredibly painful to put in, much less actually see with it. That is not how sight generally works, and even in this fantasy setting seems pretty strange.
I'm sorry I'm not the Final Fantasy expert. I didn't make the game myself. This may be a reference to seeing with a crystal ball, though I cannot be sure. As long as we get the next item in our quest, I don't really care what the eye is made of.
Hey, now we got the Jolt Tonic. I think Hunter had something like that to keep himself awake a lot now that I think about it.
We should have just given the kid Hunter's cocaine. He would have been awake in an instant and saved us the past 9 minutes of cave searching.
Donald, I don't know how you think giving a child cocaine is a good idea. That would certainly make the game rated way above where it is now.
I never said it was a good idea. But if the entire world is at stake, all I'm saying is desperate times call for desperate measures.
If we can please not consider creating a substance abuse problem for this child, we should acknowledge that he is finally awake.
Hold up a minute. Why is this lady just letting 4 strangers give this kid some drink? Not that we have any bad intentions, but she is not properly protecting him in case this Jolt Tonic was dangerous.
That's a valid point, but ignoring that glaring issue, we have the Mystic Key. We can use this in a few different places in the areas we have traveled to. There are some items we couldn't get in the castle we went to earlier, and there is a special item in Cornelia that is required for traveling further.
That sounds good. I hope this is going to stay useful now that we have it for the rest of the game.
Unfortunately, it's not going to make that much of a difference. It only serves for more backtracking to areas we've been to, and even if there were a lot of items later in the game that needed this key, we have to have it by this point. Otherwise, we couldn't progress. So having a key that opens anything sounds great, but we can already open most things anyway without it.
That's a shame, but at least we're almost out of this part of the world. Barack, do you know if we'll be fighting anything major soon?
Aside from the battles in order to get these items coming up, no. Even then, these are just different enemies than the ones we've already been fighting. So there's not much interesting left for enemies. We'll have to wait until the next video for any real boss fights.
I guess that's fine. As long as we'll have something interesting to do, then we don't need to have any boss fights. Besides, I don't know if I can handle Ben's roasting for much more.
What do you mean you can't handle much more? Are you saying my roasting skills are not up to par for you?
I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but I would rather vote for Joe as president than listen to your roast.
Oh, yeah.
You just insulted Astos' mother even though she wasn't even in the battle. We could have easily handled it without your constant talking.
Is that how it is? In that case, now's a good time for me to mention I was with Melania last night and didn't mind my talking, if you know what I mean.
No, actually I don't. Please explain it to me very clearly.
Oh, it meant I was showing her my YouTube channel and she was listening to the Ben Shapiro podcast all night.
I can't tell if this is a metaphor at this point, and I don't really want to get an answer now. What's important, we're almost done fighting these enemies and we'll be moving on to Cornelia very soon.
That is good to hear, but I really want to know what Ben meant. Nobody listens to his podcast, so I don't think that's what he would have been doing. If you were doing something else with her, then you had better get those cure spells ready for when my sword hits you several hundred times.
I've actually listened to his podcast. It's not bad. If that's what he was doing, then I see no reason to push him further just because you don't believe him.
That's right, Joe. I was showing her the episode where I was talking about my experiences with destroying the college students on campus while simultaneously getting famous online.
Are you actually bragging about being YouTube famous to 3 presidents? I don't think you're the more popular one here by comparison.
Okay, fair point. I think it would be good to ask if this is the part where we get that required item mentioned earlier or not.
It is. Along with a few other items, this will be required. We're going to be blowing up a part of a cave so we can escape this section of the world, as we don't have any way to get the ship outside of it. Then we can move on to other areas that will hopefully be more interesting than the caves and broken down castles today.
I guess we are going into another cave just so we can avoid caves. Seems a bit pointless, but I see your point. Can we also blow up Mar-a-Lago instead so Donald doesn't spend all of his time there?
Hey, Joe, I was going to question you about your usage of saying it's pointless while seeing the point. But now I'm more concerned about your interest in blowing up my golf course. I don't even spend that much time here, so what's that all about?
It means you've spent more time during your presidency golfing than anybody else has. And I bet you still get a triple bogey each time.
I get way more than that. I am the best scorer in golf there ever was. Nobody scores in golf more than the Donald himself. I bet you can't even find your club after you throw it by accident.
You do realize that golfing requires a lower score to win? I thought you would have known about this since you golf more in 4 years than I did in 8. Then again, I don't expect much from someone who calls himself the Donald.
That is fake news. I know how to play better than all 3 of you.
These ogres we're fighting could play better than you. Plus, they already have clubs. Maybe I can invite them to the White House. I'm putting in a golf course that started construction a little while ago. I'd like it if Ben and Barack joined me.
Wait, since when did the White House have a golf course? I was there a few years ago, and I could have sworn there wasn't one. Otherwise, I would have never left.
It started after I became president. I didn't tell you because it's only something presidents can do, which you aren't.
Rigged. Fake
So that's
news.
why you didn't know. I don't mean to rub it in, but I'm also inviting everybody in this cave to play as well. And I'll do it again when I'm elected in 2024.
No way you're ever getting elected again. I'd rather die in this cave than see you be president for another term.
That's the best idea you've ever come up with. Is there a way we can get that finalized?
It was an expression, you zero IQ simpleton. I'm never going away.
That's enough, you two. We're so close to getting out into the free world. Neither of you need to die in this cave.
I wouldn't say neither of us necessarily. I'm already the better warrior, and we don't need 2 on the team.
Hey, Barack, you've been quiet for a while. Is everything good on your end?
Yeah, Joe, I'm just not getting involved in the mini arguments if I can. I realize it's all in good fun, but I still try to stay focused on the game when I can. We're opening up into a lot of open area soon, and I'm excited to see what we'll be doing in the next few parts. Hopefully there's not too many more caves.
I wouldn't bet on it. I've opened up a strategy guide for this game, and it looks like these caves are just the beginning. We'll be going into several more before we get through the rest of the game. There will be some more unique sections, of course.
That's good to know. I'm feeling kind of cramped in here. I can only imagine what it's like to live here in a hole where there are clearly other places these people could have lived.
Really, at this point, I've just accepted that in this fantasy world, some people will just live in places most would consider uninhabitable, even when there's no real point, like where Astos just lived in some broken down castle without anybody else around.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm happy to go on our ship and finally leave these caves behind us.
Don't get ahead of yourself, Joe. My strategy guide says we're going to be in a new town soon, but have to go through another cave yet again just to progress further. I know we literally just got out of one to clear the way, but we're a long way until it's finally done.
I guess that's fine. As long as we're getting new items and fighting new enemies besides the same wolves, slimes, and ocean creatures, it won't be so bad. I only really get bored when we're fighting the same things repeatedly since it's not as fun to go through.
In all fairness, at your age, you could be watching The Big Bang and be bored out of your mind, so that's not really saying a whole lot.
Hold up everyone before anybody here says it. No, this is not one of the villages I was involved in bombing. I knew somebody, mainly Donald, would have brought it up if I didn't.
I was just going to say that it looks a little worn down, but I suppose now that you mention it, it does look like one of those villages after all. But anyway, that was a good one, Ben.
You're not much younger, Donald. You don't have the room to talk. I am in my prime at my age, so I get to say things like that, but you can't.
That's not true. I'm at my prime when I'm with attractive models and rich people. Not as rich as me, of course, but still very successful. While you are at your prime in colleges arguing with people you've never met.
Ooh, get roasted, Ben. He really got you good with that one.
Joe, you are in your prime at the elementary schools you frequent, and Barack is at his prime when he posts his playlist of the year on Twitter, since that's the best thing he's done in over a decade.
Why am I suddenly involved in this now?
Hey guys, although we all raised some valid points, I don't think there's enough time in the video for us to continue our roasting session today.
It's not so much of a roasting session and more of me being factually correct while everyone else is wrong. But you're right in that we do have to finish this up pretty quickly so we can go to yet another cave next time.
You're right, I'm glad we're getting through more of the game. Once we get past this cave, then I'm sure things will get a lot more interesting for us.
It will. We'll start getting through more of the crystals and unlocking even more spells and equipment that will take us to new levels. I can't wait to get our first elemental fiend defeated. Those are some of the game's highlights.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to see these guys for the first time.
Sounds good, everyone. I have to go now. I have a golfing appointment in an hour, so I have to get myself ready.
That's fine, I'm gonna go upload another one of my podcast episodes tonight.
I have to go watch another one of those podcast episodes tonight.
All right, everyone. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content from the group. We'll see you another time.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're back with another episode of Final Fantasy. This time we'll be going through yet another cave because why wouldn't we?
I certainly hope this episode will be a little more entertaining than last time. We got some things done, but I'm hoping we can get through more important fights, since Astos was the most interesting thing we fought. But even he was finished in less than a minute.
Right you are, Ben. I'm looking forward to fighting the elemental fiends guarding the crystals. It would be quite a shame if we didn't encounter one in the first few videos.
Not to worry, we will definitely be able to this time. Even though the videos are getting to be a little shorter due to cutting out a lot of less necessary battles, we'll be able to go through the dungeons much more quickly and still accomplish a lot.
I suppose you're right, but I do kind of wonder on a slightly different note. Don't you think it's a little strange how we are just able to follow a map that shows us exactly where to go? It does make it go by more quickly, but kind of removes any suspense that we would otherwise have.
I think you are correct. One of the strange things about the pixel remaster versions of the game are that there's a specific item and magic spell that allows you to look at the map. This is more unique in the original versions of the game, but since you can just press a button to bring it up here, it kind of loses the necessity of the spell and item. It's nice to have for convenience, but I don't think your assessment is wrong.
Of course it's not wrong. I'm Donald Trump. My assessments are always right.
Hey, I've been looking all over this map of the cavern, but somehow I can't find where anybody asked.
I think you need to look harder. You can look during one of the battles we will have coming up, since it's not like you'll be contributing anyway.
Okay, I have had it with you, Donald.
Oh,
I am
no,
a
here we
perfectly
go.
viable member, and this time by the end of the video, I will prove my worth to you. I will not take your insults of me being useless anymore. You will see me for my greatness.
I have a better chance of seeing Sleepy Joe stay focused on our game for more than 5 minutes without trying to sniff someone.
Hey, I haven't tried to sniff anyone in like half an episode or something like that.
Joe, you are not helping yourself, and could you all please focus up here? If we keep at each other, then we will all fail, and the world will fall apart with no warriors of light.
If they weren't going to vote for me as president, then they all deserve it.
I somehow don't think that saying everyone in the world should die if you're not the president, there has to be a better way of getting your point across.
No, I meant if they didn't vote for me, then they should be destroyed by the lack of crystals. That's what I meant.
Oh, much better. That's exactly why I'm going to win in the next election. You'll be sorry you ever heard the name Joe Biden when you lose the popular vote 3 times.
I guess we'll just see in a year or so then. Sorry I got a little heated there. I think the caves are really getting to me. That and fighting the birds, which is kind of weird that they're in a cave to begin with.
That's all right. I'm sure we'll be just fine once we get out of here and calm down. Hey, Barack, do you have any ideas on what we'll be doing for the rest of the video length?
I was hoping one of you would ask. We'll be finishing up part of this cave, but it's designed kind of weirdly. We'll have to get a certain item, leave the cave, then come back in and do the whole thing again to finally finish. It isn't good game design, but I'll be sure to mention when we're cutting away to a different part.
That is really strange design. It would make more sense if we were going to a different part of the cave entirely. But doing the first section all over again for no reason isn't good.
It really isn't. I don't remember having any other part that's quite like that in the game, so after this is done, we won't have to worry about it anymore.
Good to know. Also, it looks like we're going to have to fight this guy in order to get the item on the left of the room.
I'll get my roasting session on this time for sure.
I don't think that's in our best interest this time. This guy is a vampire and has probably been around a lot longer and heard more insults. It wouldn't have any effect on him.
That's some good critical thinking on your part. I think as long as we just attack him the same way we usually would, we'll be fine.
And before you could even finish that sentence, he is already down. He is an absolute pushover and deserves no respect or thought for being so bad at defending this room.
That is very accurate. We will be obtaining the Star Ruby. And at this point, we'll cut to being outside of the cave, so we can make a stop nearby and finish the rest of this area.
That sounds good. I wouldn't want to watch us go outside if there's nothing major we would be doing.
I wouldn't think walking back the same way out would be major. I can't imagine this being fun on the original release where you couldn't just turn off random encounters at the push of a button.
It does make it more of an issue, but it's not too bad unless you're on the original NES version where you have much more limited places to save and no autosave feature where you lose all of your progress.
That sounds almost as bad as me getting another indictment, unrelated to anything in my personal life happening. Anyway, what will we be doing with the Star Ruby?
Well, we're going to, you guessed it, go into another cave and give it to this golem so we can move and obtain the next item we'd need to get through the first cave.
I'm getting very sick of these caves. Did I mention I'm very claustrophobic? Especially when there are golems around?
You did not, but on a more important note, did this guy seriously just eat the ruby? I'm sure we could have just fought him and simplified this whole process, but I guess not.
We don't actually have to fight everything we come across. Sure, it's been a common trend, but if we just mow down everything in our path, then there's not going to be much of a world to save.
Okay, I guess you're right. But when we're done, I'm demolishing every cave in the world so none of us have to go through any again.
I think we are all in agreement with that. I don't want to stay in here any longer than I have to. I do need to get some presidential work done later, and I can't do that when I'm underground.
We all know you were going to be taking a nap right when this all finishes. I know you too well for my terms to think otherwise.
In his defense, he does need much more sleep than normal to be a contributing member of society, so he may be right on this one.
Ben, on that note, I have to make an admission. I put on your podcast episodes when I need to go to sleep since they are just that boring. I've never made it more than 5 minutes awake.
LOL, you are right. If I made a podcast, it would be the top rated in the nation and nobody could ever fall asleep, even Sleepy Joe.
Guys, we're almost to more entertaining parts of the game, and then we'll be able to pass the time without the constant back and forth every 5 minutes. I just need you to hold out a little longer.
Okay, fine. I guess if we'll be focusing on the game, not that there's anything interesting now, I do wonder, are there any plans you have for other games in the franchise to play?
I'm not completely sure. I do know finishing this game will be the main priority since it's not very long compared to the other entries, but it's not something I've thought through. I'll let you know more once we beat the first elemental fiend. That's coming up relatively soon, and I don't want to be distracted.
If my strategy guide is correct, it looks like we're getting the Earth Rod. It will allow us to go through that room where the vampire was. The door lead to a new section, but requires this rod before we could have progressed the first time.
And for the sake of convenience, I have put us back in that same room so we can make it through the last part of the Cavern of Earth. Then we'll be free from the caves for a while.
That's the best news I've heard in a long time. Say, Donald, why do you have a strategy guide? I think you first mentioned it in the last part, but Barack seems pretty knowledgeable about the game already. I think it's fine, just wasn't quite sure why you had it.
I do want to try to contribute to the discussion with this game, since though I'm naturally the better character here, I would be the most successful. Though I want to be aware of what we're coming up to next. I was not sure if it would be necessary, but think it could come in handy for some boss fights.
In that case, Donald, I have a question. Why is Joe gray?
It looks like he was turned to stone, I think very recently. This isn't something that can be healed with our current equipment. It requires the spell stona or the gold needle in order to remove the status, but some of these enemies inflict that status. He can still get experience for this version of the game, but cannot actually participate.
That is quite the shame. If we can find a gold needle or something from an enemy drop, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm out of the fight coming up soon.
Yeah, that would be a shame. Sorry, I can't heal you. I'll make sure this never happens again once I can properly heal you. But for now, we will just have to go on with the three of us fighting the encounters.
I unfortunately do not have any more advice, and I'm not sure if any gold needles are in here by the time we get to the end. This is an interesting situation, but I don't think it's unwinnable by any means.
It's fine, I will cheer you on from afar. Well, I guess I'm not actually that far, but what I mean is, I will be the moral support if I don't get out of this soon. I hope that has some real value to at least one of you.
Not really, but if I could somehow put you into a catapult and launch you at the enemies, I think that would be really effective. I don't suppose that's a magic spell that I somehow missed, Barack?
It most definitely is not. But more importantly, we are right at the fight, and I'm sorry, Joe, we're going to have to fight him with just the three of us.
I'll make sure we're healed before it starts.
I appreciate it, Ben. And of course, another fight starts right before we're actually ready to finish things here. That was incredibly bad timing, but it's nothing we can't handle after all.
All right, everyone, it's time for us to finally get ourselves a challenge. Now, the Warriors of Light will get to show the Lich what it's like when you don't spend all of your time in a cave.
It is actually fairly well lit for being a cave, so maybe he's used to the light more than we thought.
That is a decent observation. If only your ability to not be stone was as good as your sight.
Focus up, everyone. Here's the game plan. I hit him with my sword. Barack, you hit him with the best magic you can. Ben, you make sure we don't die. And Joe, don't tell any stories from your childhood to distract us.
That's an incredibly simple plan, but if it's able to bring him down, then that's what really matters, I suppose.
I don't feel like I'm really contributing here because I am currently unable to move, but I'm sure you three have got this.
Whoa, hey, why am I paralyzed now? I can't use my attacks like I normally could. My strategy guide doesn't tell me what's going on.
It looks as though you are paralyzed, but if I remember correctly, you do have a 25% chance of recovering from it each turn until you're back and ready to fight. For now, Ben and myself will try to keep us afloat.
Yeah, Donald, this is finally the time I get to prove myself to you. Ain't no way I'm gonna let us lose this time.
This is not a very good situation, but perhaps we can pull out a victory, even though our fighters have been out of commission or the moment.
I'm not filled with confidence, but we aren't dead, so I'm keeping my hopes up for now.
This is a little bit problematic as I am going to run out of magic soon, meaning our attacks are going to get much worse. While Ben won't be able to heal us with his own magic, we'll definitely need to finish the Lich off quickly, otherwise it's game over.
I mean, realistically, we can just load our recent save, go back and heal everyone, then come back without Joe being in stone, but I see your point. For the sake of our playthrough, it would be nice if we got through all of this without losing any battles at all. I'm not sure if we'll pull through.
As long as I keep hitting him with my Barack Blizzard, he won't stand a chance.
That wasn't any less cringy than when you said it earlier, but as long as you're getting the results, I'll let it slide.
Forget about that. How is it that I've still been paralyzed? I attacked him one time, then he gets 2 turns in a row, then I haven't moved since. Better yet, why hasn't he gotten anyone else? This fight is rigged against me, and I'm going to be suing his corpse after we kill him.
He already looks like a corpse, so I don't think we're going to make him more dead, but sure, you can sue him if you like anyway.
No need for that, Barack. This corpse is about to be a double corpse since we just destroyed this idiot. We should have called him the Lib instead of the Lich because I destroyed him like I do the liberals on a daily basis.
I'm just glad you didn't pull out your roasts on him again. I was having enough trouble not helping, but that would have finished me off. Good job, everyone. I'm glad we don't have to worry about him anymore.
Aside from the obvious rigging of my attacks that did go well, hey Barack, isn't this where we get new jobs or something like that?
Not exactly. That started in Final Fantasy III, in which more jobs would be accessible by doing certain things, usually after getting the crystals. Here, however, that is not the case. We will be upgrading our jobs later in the game, but it won't be for a little while longer. We can discuss that once we get closer to that point.
Okay, that sounds good. I did want to ask something that we brought up earlier. Since we got the crystal, what would be the plan after we finish this game?
So I did think about that earlier. I do know Final Fantasy II is one of the more unique games in the franchise, but I don't necessarily have the most fun playing it, and I don't know how many we'll end up doing anyway. I am interested in going through the 4th game, maybe the 3rd as well. The more games there are, the longer it takes to get through them, especially when the games are released on PlayStation. I can't say for sure, but that's my idea.
That does sound fun. I would enjoy seeing some of the later entries, especially the one with the green-haired girl for no particular reason.
Joe, I don't think I can handle another playthrough where you want to sniff girls' hair, especially if you're trying to go after ones that have unique hair colors. Are you trying to make this a worse experience for everyone?
No, it's not like that. I want to just see the intricate design of someone who looks unique enough to exist out of our normal world, but also has enough similarities to fit in with people in the real world. It's almost like you have a unique connection and can learn things based on comparing and contrasting the traits of people that are different. That, and yes, I want to sniff her hair.
Is there a way I can hire the Lich to turn you back into stone, you demented failure?
In a vain attempt to get past Joe's insane delusions, we are going through a new area of the overworld. This has some new enemies, especially in the water, and we'll be getting a new item that will further our ability to explore instead of just giving it to someone and then not have it be used again.
That is good to hear. I was hoping we'd get an actual useful item instead of some lady's eye, a crown, and a ruby that ends up getting eaten.
I do think tasting that ruby would be good, even if it can't be eaten by people. I suppose if we did have it for longer, then it would have been sold by Hunter to get more of his substances that he likes.
I thought we were done with these jokes. Addiction is a serious issue that needs to be handled differently than a lot of other issues in the world.
What did you honestly expect from Donald here? I think this is almost to be expected when he's with you here.
We're not only going to be obtaining new items in the normal shops, but also we'll have access to a canoe, which will let us go through different bodies of water, which is required for the next 2 areas we'll go to.
Nobody cares about that, but I think what we do need to focus on is Joe's presidency.
Will you shut up,
You
man?
need to sell one of those star rubies to afford gas these days.
I had more job growth than you have, and plus I'm not trying to focus any insurrections unlike you. So you need to consider your own actions that you took as president instead of focusing on mine, so get wrecked.
I will formally announce my own run for president if it will get you to focus on my white mage redemption story. I feel we brushed past it after that fight with the Lich.
Ben, like 3 people would vote for you as president, and none of them would be your own family. They'd all vote for me since I am clearly the better candidate.
I would vote for Sleepy Joe over you since he has not really insulted my magic like you have. Plus, with his age, him being reelected would be his final fantasy, which makes sense since we're playing the game now.
That would be your Final Fantasy to Donald, since you're almost as old as him already.
Donald, if you think you'd beat me in an election, then I could beat your Final Fantasy 3 times in a row, if the Constitution would allow me to.
I can settle this Final Fantasy for you. None of you should be the president, since none of you are fit. I'd rather see someone much younger, since they have a better idea of the type of people that will be the future of the world instead of a lot of older guys like us.
I don't know if that's such a good idea. I mean, do you really want the next president to be some kid with Kanye West shoes on that dabs during his inauguration speech? Or responds with, nah, for real, no cap fam, when he's asked how he will solve world hunger?
Okay, you're right. That would be a really bad idea. At that point, I'd let this crocodile be the president instead.
That's probably the smartest thing you've said this whole episode. Anyway, we're almost done, so I have to go play an 18-stroke match of golf against Ron DeSantis.
Sounds good. I'm going to get my firstborn child take over Daily Wire so I can run for president full time.
I have to go do president things like figure out what that green-haired girl's name is for research.
That sounds incredibly disturbing, but you go do that. We're going to be going through a few more new areas in the next episode, so be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more Final Fantasy content. Peace out, fellow people.
Haha, just kidding about the hair. Make sure to vote for me too, if you want to see more games on the channel.
How could you ever consider locking content from YouTube away based on the amount of people that vote for you? Vote for me, and you'll get all the Final Fantasy games you want. For real, no cap.
Yo, what is up, everyone? We are back for another episode of Final Fantasy.
I am happy to be getting through more of this game. What are we going to be doing today?
That is a good question. We will be going through 2 new areas, one being this volcano, which we will need to do for the second crystal, and the other one is to get an item that will allow us to obtain an airship so we can fly to the majority of the world.
I hope this airship doesn't have stairs we need to climb on. Otherwise, Joe is going to stumble several times before we finally start flying.
Don't worry, everyone. I took my pills today. There will be no falling over on my end.
We won't actually be flying it yet. We still have to get the Levistone first. I don't think you have to go into the volcano first. It's just the one I thought would be most convenient to right now.
My strategy guide says we should be going here first anyway, so I think it worked out. Honestly, as long as we get through it all, I don't think it matters. I suppose if you need more training for the characters, then the ice area is better to start, since the major enemy at the end is not overly difficult.
For sure, that is good information, but I was wondering something else about this place. Are we really just walking straight through lava in order to pass through the different floors here? I'm sure Barack does know Blizzard and could reasonably make us a path at the very least, Better yet, how are we surviving this volcano's heat to begin with?
Were we walking through lava this whole time? I was wondering why my feet were feeling warm. I thought it was the pills I took earlier, but I'm glad it's not just me.
No, Joe, for some reason the game developers thought it would be funny to have us walk straight through lava. It does do some damage every time you step into it, but not enough to where it's a real challenge, unless you don't heal up from it every once in a while.
At least it's not another cave like before. I'm so glad that we're not going through caves every single episode now.
On one hand, it is visually much better, but I don't think us being in a volcano is that much better. We shouldn't even be alive at these temperatures.
And would you look at that, Barack is cooling off the enemies while he hasn't cooled us off once. Real kind of you to do that for our opposition.
My blizzard attack would probably kill you, so I suppose if that's how you want to cool off, then I can arrange that. But I don't think that will make the battles easier.
You are right. Since I'm the superior player, it would be significant if I couldn't fight, unlike Joe, who was out of the Lich fight and we won just fine.
Hey, you were out of it too after the first turn.
That's besides the point. Why don't you cast something useful on us instead, Barack? Maybe a float spell so we don't have to walk in lava?
The float spell is not introduced until a later game in the series. But I think I have something much better that will make things better for everyone. Abracobama.
Wait, what did you do?
Just like normal, Barack failed to do anything useful with himself. And that leaves me to fight off all of our encounters.
Donald, I think you need to look at yourself to see what Barack's spell did.
I don't see what he could have. Wait, Barack, what did you do to my image?
LMAO, Donald. He really got you good with that one.
That's right, if you make fun of my magic abilities, which is often very useful for getting rid of many enemies in a single attack, unlike you, where you can only focus on one, I can change your image to whatever I please. In this case, it just happens to be a much more recent image.
Okay, I apologize for any of my earlier comments. You are a very useful member of our party, and it is nice to have you here in our journey to save the world.
That's good to hear. I'll put your original image back again since you had a change of heart, Abracobama.
That is much better. I appreciate the switch back. I'll try to make fun of you a little bit less from now on.
That's all I can ask for. That applies to everybody else, so you better not think for a second that I won't do the same to you.
I don't have any mugshots, so I highly doubt that will be a problem for me. Besides, you wouldn't do that to your former vice president.
Yeah, I bet you won't. You've got nothing on us.
You think so? I didn't want to do this, but I will, Abracobama.
Uh-oh, I'm afraid of what's going to happen to us now.
Yeah, maybe that was a bad decision after all.
LOL Barack changed Joe to a picture where he's sniffing some kid, and Ben to some cringy photo of him with a gun that is definitely not owned by him. I'm glad when things like this are happening to people that aren't me.
I apologize, Barack. You are the best black mage I've ever met. Not that I have met many or really any of them, but you really are a halfway decent guy.
Yeah, I second that. In fact, out of all the black presidents we've had, you rank up in my top 7 or 8 personally.
Those were not very good in terms of actual apologies, but I think you two generally got the point across not to mess with me or insult my black magic skills anymore. So I guess I will change you back, Abracobama.
Hey, now that I think about it, what does Abracobama mean exactly?
It's supposed to be like abracadabra, like that thing magicians say, except changed to be more like my last name. I think it fits well personally.
I'm inclined to disagree with you and say it's the worst idea of a magic name I've ever heard. But in order to not get my picture changed again, I will refrain from making any more comments about that.
So now that our pictures are normal, can we go back to what's actually happening on the screen? It seems like we completely derailed there for a while.
There's not much really going on. We're collecting some items, but there's only so much we can talk about since we're still just walking through lava and getting items we probably won't ever use.
Since there's not much going on, can I tell a story to pass the time?
Oh, wow, Joe, I was really hoping you'd offer. That's a great idea.
You really mean it?
Would I lie to you? Of course, I absolutely would not. That is never something I or anybody in the human population would ever ask for.
I'll take that as a yes. It was a long time ago in 1890 where my good friends Joe and Harold were investigating this house that we found near a forest. It was always confusing since there were 2 of us named Joe. I was usually called Handsome Joe since the other one was really ugly and didn't have any other friends. We were about to enter the house when we saw what looked like a man inside. Ugly Joe decided he was going to go inside since there was nothing better for us to do, so he went and followed the room where the man was. Harold and I heard a scream and we ran away. We never saw Ugly Joe again.
That was somehow even worse than your story when we went past the bridge. Just how many stories do you have that end with someone dying?
You would not believe it. There's a lot. Remember, guys, he used to be my vice president for 8 years. So I got to hear stories like this all the time. I think this was only the second or third one he's mentioned during this playthrough. But he had something new for me, and it was different every time. I'd be surprised if he ever ran out at this point.
I've never said this before, but I feel so bad for you. If you had to put up with stories like that all the time, it's no wonder you were as bad of a president as you were.
Wait, what now?
If he were my vice president, I would have gone to the golf course even more, just so I could not listen to his ramblings.
What are you all talking about that was a great story? I don't see what I did that was wrong.
Please explain how literally any part of your story was conceivably okay, much less good.
There was the part where we were both named Joe.
I wouldn't really consider that to be a good part. I think you should not tell too many stories on this playthrough. Otherwise, our audience is going to get bored and fall asleep just like you would.
To get off the topic of Joe's terrible stories, we are in the last section of this volcano, and we are about to fight the boss of the area. There's quite a few different paths, but we're just going to go straight into the required section since there's nothing we need in the other parts. Not that we've needed most of the items we've gotten, but still.
I sure am excited to get this volcano finished. I'm starting to feel a bit warm in here.
Yeah, I hope our two warriors here will actually contribute this time instead of letting Barack and I handle the entire thing.
Hey, I managed to hit the Lich once, but anyways, my strategy guide indicates this is Merilith. She has a lot of arms and is kind of like a snake, so I don't know if she will give us any sort of trouble. I'm really hoping not this time.
No, I don't think she'll be much trouble. If it's all right with everyone, I'm going to hit her with my roast and see if that will distract her from knocking all of us out.
It can't be any worse than Joe's story. Go ahead.
Will do. Merilith, you are so ugly, you make ugly Joe look like handsome Joe.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
glad you have so many hands since I can count the amount of times I've wanted to be around you on 0 fingers. You are so fat that you create enough body heat to be warmer than this volcano. You make me ashamed to exist on the same period of time as you. If I had a nickel for every time I've wanted to get stranded on an island and jump off a cliff because I saw someone, I'd have 1 nickel, which I got right after I met you.
LMAO.
I would rather get arrested and take a photo as bad as Donald's than be in the same
news.
solar system as you. Looking at your face has the opposite effect of therapy. I don't know who your parents are, but they probably regret having you being alive more than I do. You are what happens when a Tunberry gets his knife to become really dull, pointless. I would like you to be dead. You are so undesirable, even Joe wouldn't sniff you.
Ooh, got
You
him.
make the liberals I constantly destroy on Daily Wire look smart by comparison. I hope for Christmas, instead of presents, you get all the people in your life together and tell you how much of a failure you are. One more before you are finished. You're so unattractive that I would rather look in the other direction than see you because you are not in line with my personal standards of beauty.
That went on for a while and had a weak ending, but I'm glad you managed to break her down while we took down her health. That was a nice battle from all of us.
Yeah, I think that worked out just fine. Hey, Barack, I didn't think to ask this earlier, or I might have just forgot. What will we do now that the video is only about halfway over and we already fought the main enemy for now?
We will be going to the Ice Cavern, which is a major contrast to the area we're already in. I don't think there will be any problems there.
I don't remember seeing any ice cavern at all. Did I just happen to miss it somewhere before we went into the volcano earlier?
According to my strategy guide, we have to use our boat to go above the area we reached to get to the volcano. And after going through another water maze in the canoe, we can get to the ice cavern.
We'll cut some of the footage to show us back in the town all rested and ready to set sail. Despite us only being in our 4th part, we're already over halfway through with the game. I think while our new golfing series has already started, we'll soon have to find another game to go through, since we'll run out of parts for both games eventually.
Are there any games in particular we can go through that will be entertaining? I know Barack already mentioned a Final Fantasy game in the future besides this one before, but I can't think of anything right now.
Oh, how about a Tron game? I have a lot of those from my childhood, and that would be a great time for everyone.
Joe, I thought you were done mentioning Tron after our Jackbox games we uploaded. If there was one time for your forgetfulness to happen, I was hoping it would be now, but I guess not.
I did have an idea. What about a Mega Man game? I have played that off and on when I wasn't debating people in colleges, so I think that might be fun to experience.
I have a better idea. How about we play a game of Russian roulette? We can have Joe go first, then Barack and Ben. Then we just keep going until we have a winner.
That seems very dangerous, and why aren't you playing in that game? I noticed you didn't say when you were taking your turn.
I have to be the referee and make sure there's no cheating going on.
That is a terrible idea, and there is no way we could upload that to YouTube without getting banned immediately. Plus, that would make headlines across the nation for being one of the dumbest moments in human history.
No, that would be when Donald started campaigning for presidency nearly a decade ago.
Nobody asked you, plus you're not even a president.
Although I'm not the president of the USA, I'm actually president of a different subsection called the LIGMA.
Ligma, that sounds like it's pronounced Ligma. What is that?
Ligma balls.
How did you even fall for something like that? It was so obvious, and you still went into his joke head first.
Yeah, Joe, you better not mess with me otherwise. You're going to be hit with my jokes so cold they make the Ice Cavern look warm by comparison.
I will admit that I should have been more careful there, but I swear I will not forget this moment and will never get tricked into saying Ligma again.
Let's not get crazy. We all know you're going to get tricked by the end of the episode for sure.
I suppose now is the time I should mention there are some rather difficult enemies coming up. They can do a lot of damage to our party, even at our level, so we must be careful.
You mean like these ones that just used the thunder move and nearly killed a few of us?
That is exactly it. I was surprised you weren't going to say that your strategy guide already told you ahead of time that they were coming up soon.
I decided I'm not going to use my strategy guide unless I feel like it's necessary. It sounds like you already know a lot about how this game goes, and I don't feel the need to spoil myself with all sorts of facts later in the game. I think you do fine enough for now.
Just curious, Donald, where did you get that strategy guide at? I've been wanting to get one of those for myself so I can know what's going on in the game more, but don't know where to look.
That's a good question. While there are many I found online that would be sufficient enough, sometimes getting one physically is also nice, as I can do an offline gaming session and still know what to do. I got mine off of the Linguistics in Gaming Magazine annual edition. The website is just the first letter of each of those letters.
I think you mean first letter of each of those words, but otherwise that's right.
Sorry it took me a minute to get all of those written down, so I think the letters you said were listed as Ligma. Can you repeat what that means again?
It means Ligma balls, Joe. I got you with that again. Get wrecked.
Oh, wow, you really got me good there. I don't know how I didn't see that coming yet again.
LOL, Joe. You fall for the simplest things possible. Speaking of falling, that is what we have to do for this next section. As we need to get that item surrounded by all of those cracked ice blocks, we'll explore a little bit and then make our way to a point where we can get the Levis Stone.
That was some nice magic abilities you showed there, Barack. You got rid of all those enemies in one attack. Otherwise, they would have taken slightly longer than the rest of us fighting them on our own.
I appreciate that, Ben. It's nice to know I can show you all my true battle potential, especially when it comes to knocking down 8 or so enemies in one attack. I can only imagine what our team would be like if we chose the Thief or Monk class instead.
We might have had a few losses in that case, but I think we're all getting out of the slump we were in for the beginning of the game, where we didn't have that many major strengths to finish off encounters.
That does sound right. I do think this game would be more of a challenge if we played on one of the earlier versions of the game, but this is a good way of showing off the main experience, even if it is a little easy.
I think the only thing easier than this game is getting Joe to say Ligma. I'll bet I can get him to say it at least one more time before the end of this game. There's no way his memory is going to be that good to not fall for it.
No, I'm taking special precautions now. This time I've hired a few of the White House staff to stop keeping guard of the nuclear codes I kept hidden in the bottom right corner of the kitchen drawer near the refrigerator, like I usually keep them hidden at to watch what you're saying and alert me if I'm about to get tricked.
Did you actually just tell us all exactly where you kept the nuclear codes at by accident? And also detailed the fact you don't have anybody guarding them in case someone would like to take them for their own purposes?
Oh, maybe I did by accident. That's fine. It's not like any of you are going to be taking them. Barack already had access to them before, and Ben's probably never been here, so it's fine.
When I had them, I didn't say exactly where they were to the whole internet, but I'd recommend moving them somewhere else so you can salvage this situation at all.
No, I have to keep my guards here just in case one of you try to trick me again into saying that word by accident. I'm sure nobody is going to take them.
I know I have the integrity to not take them myself, since I have an honest character that won't be taking the first opportunity at sabotaging someone just because it's open.
I know I am too. So I'm sure we won't be taking them at the very least. Isn't that right, Donald? Are you still there? That's kind of weird that he's not here now. Anyways, since we defeated the incredibly easy eye enemy at the end of the cavern, we're cutting back to the nearest town to heal everyone and buy a few items. Not that we'll need all of them, but it's good to have backup supplies just in case.
Guys, you won't believe what I just got back from doing while the game was going.
I have a bad feeling at where this might be going.
So there I was, walking by the White House since I was in the neighborhood. I still had the keys since I was there a few years ago. I was stopping by the kitchen to get myself a snack. While I was making myself a sandwich, I was looking for the peanut butter right next to the refrigerator, and what do I see? The nuclear code's completely unguarded. I decided to finish making my sandwich and took the codes with me for safekeeping.
Joe, you have nobody to blame for this but yourself.
It's not my fault he came in and stole something of mine. I'm not the one who stole them, so it can't be my fault. Anyway, Donald, what will it take for you to give me back those codes?
A full pardon of everything I have and will ever do.
No way, Donald. You may as well read them out to all of us since I'm not doing that.
Fine, everyone. Use these codes however you'd like. It's 42069LIGMA. Wait, what is this supposed to mean? This doesn't look right.
It means Ligma balls, Donald. Did you think I'd really leave the nuclear codes unguarded like that? That's what happens when you mess with me.
Despite the sheer planning that would have went into that being rather impressive for someone with Joe's mental fortitude, we do have to save the future hijinks for later, as we're getting the airship now and will allow us to explore the world more than we could before.
I'm going to get you back for that, Joe, but I will admit that was well played. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back here for more soon.
That was quite good. So long, people.
We appreciate all the new viewers in the past couple weeks. Bye, everyone.
That's right. We hope you all continue to enjoy the journey. So long until next time. Welcome back to another episode of the President's Play Final Fantasy. Last time, we were able to go through the Ice Cavern to obtain the Levistone, which lead us to this airship, in addition to getting through a volcano and the second crystal.
Thanks for the recap, but I'm pretty sure the audience is able to figure that out if they just watched the video from before, though our genius editor forgot to include the background music last time, so it makes sense that you skipped it entirely.
Honestly, I was just saying it so Joe would be up to speed. We all know of his memory being a little bit non-existent sometimes.
There's no need to worry about my memory, Barack. I am perfectly capable of remembering our playthrough of Golf with Your Friends to be caught up now.
That is just more proof that we need to do the recap at the beginning of the video, and probably a few more times later on in the video, just to be sure there's no way you'll forget.
I think someone should have asked this earlier, but what are we going to be doing today exactly?
Good question. We will be going through a few lesser important parts of the game. The most interesting being an optional area that if we get the special item at the end, we'll be granted upgrades to our jobs, letting us become even better than we already are. That, and we'll be visiting a few new towns and getting some new items, though no crystals today.
I'm pretty sure I don't need any upgrades since I'm already the best player here, but I suppose I'll go along with it if everyone else is already...
I do wonder, is this guy's whole purpose just to stand here and let whomever comes in just says what they have to do? Is it possible for a sign to be placed here instead, since that serves the same purpose?
I wish I could replace you with a sign sometimes, and by sometimes I mean all the time.
Hey, I was going to ask one of you, what exactly do we have to do to get this great item here?
We're going to have to go through these teleporters. Most of them will just send you back to the beginning, or pretty close there, so we have to pick the ones that will advance us further. There's no real way to tell which one is which. You just kind of have to guess your way through it.
Just like Donald guesses through his speeches?
No more like when you guess your way around walking and you usually fall down since your guesses are wrong, especially up and down stairs, on a bike, really anywhere.
I'm just glad Joe's not the one leading us through here. Otherwise, we'd never get to the end of this place.
Okay, that's enough. Sure, Joe has limited memory and walking abilities, but that doesn't mean he has no unique qualities.
He definitely has unique qualities. I just can't think of anything good. You were in office while he was the vice president. What kind of notable characteristics did you notice?
Well, there was that time there was him putting ice cream in the fridge and taking it out a lot. That was pretty good, I guess. Can I get back with you later on this?
Do I have any input on this, or should I just listen to you insult me some more?
You can come in whenever you'd like with your defensive character. Nobody is stopping you.
There was that time I told the story about my childhood that was a good time. There's my natural charm and good looks I bring to the group.
If there's anyone bringing good looks to the group, it's obviously me. No contest.
Don't get ahead of yourself. We all know I am the superior-looking member, both my in-game character and in reality.
I think we can stop insulting Joe and making assumptions about the group's person with good looks when it's obviously me. I want to focus on the...
Hold up there, Barack. Are you really trying to do this again? Are you just that satisfied being the mediator to our group? Sure, we may have been a bit harsh on Joe, but at the same time, you blatantly assuming you are the attractive one, when you wanted to stop focusing on Donald and myself doing the same thing isn't fair. You aren't the mediator. You are just like us, except you're trying to hide it behind being a peacekeeper.
In all this time, I thought you were saving the roast for the boss fights.
What are you getting at, Ben? All of us know I am the real peacekeeper. It's usually Donald and Joe getting at it while you're on the sidelines half the time, and the other half you're insulting us too. I am really the one holding this group together. Otherwise, it would be a non-stop argument against Joe.
While I wish you would use a different phrase than Donald and I getting at it, I do think you're kind of right. I do think you're the one trying to keep us together, but you can't let it go to your head and overinflate your ego.
I didn't actually ask you, but thank you anyway for your opinion that I won't consider maybe if you'd...
That's not okay to say to him. He can give his opinion even if he is wrong sometimes. And by sometimes, I mean all the time. His wrong opinion is welcome, is the point I was making.
Thanks, I think.
Wow, I think I may have made a mistake. Getting that rat's tail as a reward really changed my perspective on things, Joe. I apologize for whatever I said. You didn't deserve that, and you do have good qualities, even if I can't really name any of them off the top of my head. Sometimes I do get a bit full of myself when I stop you all from fighting, but then I become just as bad.
Wait, getting the rat's tail was what changed your mind, not any of us convincing you otherwise? How exactly does that work?
I started to think that this is what will let us prove we are worthy to Bahamut the dragon near these caves. We're searching for him and the items now. But I realized that even something that seemingly doesn't serve a point can be proof of true greatness when given to the right person. That made me think about us and made me change my mind.
So what, we don't serve a point? Do we have to be given to someone to prove something? I'm not sure what the lesson is here.
I think Barack just lost his mind is all. He has no clue what's going on anymore. I'm starting to consider recasting his position, but let's see what happens here.
Oh, great Bahamut, lend us your ears. We have went and gotten you a rat's tail. I'm sure we probably could have found one in the back of half the towns we went to. I'm not sure why we needed to give you this specific one. I hope we are worthy of your upgraded abilities.
He's already doing it, Barack. It's fine. We proved ourselves.
Donald, I do wonder, is this going to make Barack go back to normal? I don't know what's gotten into him, but he's been insane for a bit of this episode. I'm not sure if he will ever become normal again.
Okay, Barack, it's time for you to stop. I'm going to have to remove you from here if you keep that up.
Whoa, where am I? Guys, what happened to me? I don't remember anything in the past few minutes clearly.
Did you do something that would have made you like that? It's very out of character for you. You were very insulting and full of yourself.
I know what happened. I was trying to think of something that Joe was good at. So I took one of his pills that helps him remember. I had a few left over that he forgot to bring with him after I left office and wanted to try remembering. Apparently, it makes me much worse though, and it didn't even work. I'm not taking those again. I'm not sure how you do it, Joe. I guess that is something good about you. You don't have those adverse reactions.
It may have been the fact you took medication not prescribed to you that's at least 7 years old.
Someone
but
say
I guess
7-year-old?
We'll go with that. Now that you're presumably back to normal, what is this place here?
This is the place where a bottled fairy was kept. We are going to a new town in a moment and free the fairy which is needed before we can enter the next area of the game.
Is there some sort of monopoly on bottled fairies? I don't think we've seen any in or out of a bottle besides this one. How do you even catch one of these? Is this akin to slavery since they are probably sentient, or is this more like owning a pet in this world?
I think you've put in more time thinking about this than the developers did. It's best to keep this in mind as this is a fantasy-based game, and we don't need to judge it based on the real-world implications, however disturbing they may be at points.
No, that is why I am here. I am critically analyzing this because nobody else is going to. That is what the truly free thinkers would do. All of the people conforming to the majority are bottled in just the same way, only it's a mental bottle instead of a literal one. That, and you'd need a much larger bottle, I suppose.
Great analysis, Ben. I'm sure if you'll make a video on Daily Wire about it, then you'll get tens, maybe even 100 views on that. Perhaps if you're also willing to dedicate some time contemplating the thought process of who owns these crystals and if they have a moral obligation to keep them in some dungeon in order to keep the world safe.
That is the best idea you've ever come up with, or it's at least good for a Democrat. I am definitely writing an article about this on Twitter before I put my full thoughts on video form.
That's a great idea. I would like to see that video when you're done with it.
Thank you, Joe, although I don't think you're able to truly comprehend the kind of videos I make. They're very critical and think they'd go over your head. I think you'd spend your time better eating ice cream in the Oval Office.
I don't see why I can't do both at the same time. I can put it on my phone while eating ice cream with my other hand. I'm a self-proclaimed expert in multitasking.
No, you aren't, but more importantly, Ben, you just got the holy spell. It only took you 4.5 videos, but you finally got a decent damaging spell against regular enemies. I'm so proud of you. I'm glad I get to have this moment instead of just thinking you're still only good for healing.
I appreciate the thought, although I won't be using it that often. I'm going to try saving it for the important boss fight since I have a limited amount of uses for it, so I won't be using it for most battles.
Hold up, it took so long to get you one good damaging move, and you're not even going to use it. I'm disappointed, Ben. It's one thing to not have a great way of fighting enemies. It's another to have one and then just not use it. I'm sure we have some ethers you can use. I definitely won't need them.
In Ben's defense, my magic is able to get through normal enemy encounters while he doesn't have as many options, so it makes more sense to keep them for when he would really need them instead.
Yeah, that's right. I'll be coming up when you need me. Don't worry about it. I'm sure you can handle most of our encounters anyway.
Guys, I just woke up from a quick sleep session. What's happening with this ferry here?
This ferry is going to be giving us the oxyale, which allows us to breathe underwater. It is required because the next main area we are going to is actually underwater.
That's good and all, but how are we going to spend the next few minutes if we're not going underwater until the next video?
Yes, we are going to stop inside of a cave in a waterfall, as we're going to need another item. This isn't needed for the water area, though is required for the major area after that. We'll be doing both of those in the next video to make up for the shorter time here. I figured we'd get this now since it only takes a couple minutes, and we're already doing the smaller tasks in this video already.
I still wonder, what exactly is the reason for all of these required items to be placed in these weird places? It's almost like Garland put them here to mess with us, as there's no reason why they would be put around in caves that nobody else would ever go to.
That is a good observation, Ben. Joe, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think this is the first time you've ever asked my input on something. This is a great moment in our blossoming friendship.
Yeah, it's great and all, but what do you think?
Oh, I have no idea. I really don't have any input right now, but thanks for the thought. I'll come up with something that will really knock your socks off.
I don't think my socks will be going anywhere, but that's fine. We're almost to the end. I guess I'll mention after the water area is done in the next video in the series, we'll be going through the wind section, which we'll be getting access through a tower that has been previously unseen. That is what this item will be useful for.
We're going in the sky. Can't we just use the airship? We just got it, and that's literally what it does, goes in the air. I'm sure it can go just a little bit higher. I don't see why that would be a huge problem.
That's a good idea. I'm not sure why that wouldn't work. Maybe there's just a limit on how high they can really go. But I'm not sure there's really an explanation as to why exactly.
It's fine. I just might be overthinking things a little bit. It's all right.
Is nobody going to mention Donald getting wrecked just now?
I was hoping everyone would ignore it, but no Joe of all people had his keen eye set out at just the right time.
Ben, I did have some input on that airship thing. My idea is that the airship just wouldn't work. It's been in the sand for probably a long time, and although we can go a certain amount of distance above the ground, all of the sand pulls it down, making us unable to go any higher.
That's probably not right, but I'm glad you're putting some real thought into it, which is all I really wanted you to do.
Good to hear it, Joe. But I do have to mention, we're cutting away to the airship again. One of the last stops is in this new town. We're going to come back later, but there are some spells that would be great now. We'll come back when we can speak the language of the people coming up soon.
How are we going to learn a language? Is there really no other way to get what we need? I'm pretty sure we can just take it. If it's really the world at stake, then I'm sure they'll understand.
When this new language is learned and we get whatever item we need, is it really going to be all that helpful? Or will we ever need to talk with anyone else for a different reason?
No, we will be learning an entirely new language to us just so we can speak with one person and then never use it again. For some reason, the people at the shops are just fine with communicating like everyone else has in the game, which is more convenient for us, but also a bit inconsistent.
Good to know. I'll be getting myself the full life spell, which will no doubt come in handy a lot, assuming we run out of Phoenix Downs, which honestly I'm doubting by this point.
Yeah, that probably won't get used all that much. At least we have it just in case, but these spells are usually more helpful in concept. Like, sure, having a magic spell that attacks undead enemies specifically is nice, but if you can hit them with a sword and do much more damage, then it's not really worth it.
And in case anyone missed it, I'm looking at you, Joe.
Who's
we
Joe?
made our way back to that island with the bottled ferry and that waterfall, as I think that's the last place we'll need to go to before finishing up today.
I'm glad this turned out well. Aside from Donald getting knocked out once in a battle, there wasn't that much trouble we faced. But maybe that'll be different once we get into the water next time.
I don't know if this is a bad time to mention, but I never learned how to swim, so even if we can breathe underwater, I don't know how far I will get through.
That's all right. We will be sinking to the bottom, so you won't have to learn any swimming techniques.
Somehow that doesn't make me feel any better.
If you want to let the better fighter do all the work, then we can just have you be unconscious for the battles and let me get the experience.
I think we'll be okay. Thank you for guiding us today, Barack. As long as you don't take any more of Joe's pills, we should be able to finish the game soon. See you all next time.
Anytime, Ben. I look forward to getting the last 2 crystals. We're nearing the end, but there's still more to do. Catch you later.
Peace out, people.
Goodbye, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the playthrough of Final Fantasy. It's been a while since we continued our journey, but we are back to make some more progress in obtaining the last 2 crystals.
There's going to be a lot that happens in this episode, so I'm going to need all of you to listen up very carefully. We will be going through the last 2 main areas for the crystals, but also doing a few side projects.
What exactly does that mean? I'm not sure what side projects you are talking about now.
Well, this underwater section is the first part of it. And this is actually unique, as along with the standard boss fight at the end, there is an entirely separate path that has an item that is required for us to reach the next part of the game. And I'll let you know when that all happens.
So this section to the right for this staircase, is this where the required item is?
That is right. We'll be cutting back near the beginning when we get it, though there are a lot more items in the same room. This will make a lot more sense once you actually see it.
It might just be me, but this place looks really confusing. There's so many places to go, so I'm glad we have this map constantly so we don't lose our place at all. That would be so much more inconvenient.
For once, it's actually not just you getting confused. It does look like there are a lot of parts here that don't have much reason to them, but that has been the case with a lot of areas in this game. Oh, and I know I saw this earlier too, but Barack, you have done a great job at handling these enemies. Your fire spells have been making such quick work of them.
Thank you, Donald, but don't forget that Ben also should have gotten a holy spell last time, and he's going to be doing a lot of damage.
I will for sure, though it is unfortunate that I only have one really good attacking spell, whereas Barack has so many, and I don't do much physical damage. Regardless, I don't think that will become a major issue at all since there's not much of the game left to go.
I'm still sure we'll make it through just fine. We're not having as difficult of a time as we did in the beginning of the game. Also, Barack, is this the room you were talking about? The one with a lot of items in it?
Yes, it is. There are quite a few things that we could be getting. But there's only one required item to get. That is coming up. It's the Rosetta Stone. It allows us to speak a certain language in a town we made it to in the last video that we didn't make much progress in.
Oh yeah, I remember using the phone application to learn English a while back, but I also read the original one back when I learned English the first time before I forgot it.
Joe, how do you even forget a language? Is that even possible?
If there's one person in the world who can forget a language, it is definitely him.
You may be right about that, but what's more important is the fact that we cut back to the top area of the first room to save some time, and we'll be getting through the next half of this place.
Hey, that reminds me, wasn't there some special announcement we wanted to make since our last upload?
I don't know how that reminded you of the announcement, but yes, over the past few weeks, we passed the 1,000 subscriber mark and have only been getting more since then.
There was already a community post about it, though we thought it would be best to acknowledge it in video form, even if it dates the video a little bit. We want to thank everyone who watches, whether you are subscribed or not. So far, it has been a great time, and there is no plan of stopping the videos anytime soon.
In addition, there are going to be our upcoming games to make it more interesting for the viewers. We'll continue to get more videos of golf with your friends out, as even though it is common amongst other President channels, it is quite fun to make, and people seem to be enjoying it.
But wait, there's more. To give a more unique experience on this channel, after Final Fantasy is done, we will be starting Final Fantasy IV. Unless we're mistaken, there are only a couple of channels that are playing through Final Fantasy games, though I'm not sure if those playthroughs are finished. Either way, we will be skipping the second and third games at least for now, but may come back to them at a later point.
The last bit of news is that we hosted a vote earlier last week, and Metal Gear Solid won the vote to be the next game we start after Final Fantasy IV begins. This will be pretty long as it will include the cutscenes and some of the codec calls, but since that won't start for at least another month or two, we won't go into much more detail until then.
That's enough with a channel update to complement the boring dungeon. Now back to your regularly scheduled program with Joe to give his opinions on this place. Joe, are you there?
Yes, I've definitely been awake this entire time, guys. We need to give an update on the channel since we got 1 million subscribers now.
We just went over this. Did you sleep through most of the message about what we're going to do for our channel?
No, I have been very aware of my surroundings this entire time. I just kind of dozed off a minute ago since I didn't eat my morning ice cream.
I'm not sure what's weirder, the fact that you can't stay awake without ice cream or the fact you have a designated ice cream at morning time.
I swear this is just a greatest hits collection of all Joe's weird aspects. His falling asleep ice cream and forgetfulness all in one beautiful moment of failure.
What do you mean failure? I am not failing at all. Didn't you lose Trump Organization recently in a court case, or did I forget that too?
That one you did remember correctly?
No, it'll be fine. That was fake news. Nobody is losing any organizations.
That is definitely not fake news at all. You are definitely in denial, and we can see it.
I deny that I'm in denial. Plus, you don't have an organization of your own. So it's hard to know how much it's worth. And sometimes you overestimate the numbers a little bit. It happens.
Yeah, it does happen, especially when you overestimate your voter count, then claim it's rigged. Meanwhile, I'm living luxuriously in the White House with all the ice cream I could ever want and also being the president.
Why was the ice cream more important to mention than being the president? I thought you had enough of that back during my terms.
Let's be real, the only reason I ran was to get that special flavor of sea salt ice cream that I can only get here and nowhere else.
Were you aware of that flavor being fairly common and something you can get at a store without having to run for office first?
Somehow, no, that did not come to mind, but thank you for mentioning it. I will be spending the defense budget on getting as much of it shipped to my home after my terms are up.
I think you mean term is up, singular.
No, I meant what I said.
If you two could stop arguing for any period of time, we're kind of about to start the fight for the crystal now, which will require you to actually focus.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I forgot there was a game going on.
Hey guys, would it be all right if I could bring out my epic roast against this guy? I have a lot of things I can say that would distract him while the rest of you can put all the damage on him.
I think it may be better for you to save your roasting for the next video, as it will be the last one in the series. Plus, that's where we will really need to use it. There's not much of a strategy to this guy, since our normal attacks are able to do enough.
Okay, I guess that is a fairly good point. I'll try to keep it to myself until next time. For now, though, I suppose we can acknowledge that I finally used Holy on something. I'm glad I can be of more use in our boss fights besides just being the healer.
That is true, though you didn't need to heal us since he's already down. I knew that would be pretty easy. But even still, he did not put up much of a fight.
We're not even halfway through the video, and that's already one elemental archfiend down, Barack. What are we going to do now?
That's a good question. Obviously, the crystal here is done, and we don't have to come back anymore, though there are some steps that have to be done to prepare for the next major area.
Please don't keep us in suspense. I'm really interested in what we're doing now.
Okay, fine, I'll tell you. Once we leave this place, we will be going back to a town we were at previously called Melmond, which is the place we have to give someone the Rosetta Stone. And after he looks at it, we will learn the language in a few seconds somehow.
I don't even know where to start with my questions. How is it that this one guy exclusively can read this stone, why we are supposed to know to go back to this place specifically, and why are there no other documents in the world teaching people who to speak one of the two languages spoken by characters in this game?
I have absolutely no idea how we are supposed to know all of this, but I just know it was quite difficult to figure out my first time playing, especially when you'd think we could just use the Rosetta Stone ourselves, since no other items that I can think of require someone else to study it before we can use it.
That does sound pretty convoluted, almost like Joe himself programmed this game.
Before we delve into yet more arguing, we're going back to the town of Lufenia now, as although we previously got some magic spells here, nobody else could speak the language, so we were unable to get the item that we can now access, which is a chime.
I wasn't paying attention for the past minute all that much. Can you explain that all again, please?
I will definitely not be repeating that. The last part is once we leave this town, we'll cut back to our airship as we go below a desert section, which is right before the tower we need to go through for our progression.
That was a lot of words to describe what was happening. I hope the last part of the game isn't so complicated.
If this game is that hard to understand at points, I can't imagine how later games will be in regards to their path to the end of the game.
Honestly, it's not that bad as long as you have a walkthrough. But when the game came out, it was much more difficult to understand. Thankfully, the internet gives us so much more helpful information that lets us play these games more easily.
Unless, of course, the internet just slanders me. In that case, it is not helpful information.
Stating facts about you is not slander, regardless of how much you don't like it.
My lawyers are top of the line, and they can prove my point since I wouldn't pay them if they couldn't.
I thought you didn't pay them anyway.
Oh yeah, I don't, but that's just good business decisions to save money.
I'm pretty sure that's just wage theft or something like that.
No, it's definitely not something like that. Otherwise, that sounds like I'm doing something wrong.
Well, yeah, I guess that's definitely a possibility. If I might take a guess, is this something we can find in your book, The Art of the Deal?
I was just about to mention that yes, I am selling signed copies of my book, The Art of the Deal, available at your local bookstore. And if it's not there, then it's biased against Republicans.
I'm pretty sure your book isn't still being printed, but even if it was, how are you signing all of the copies?
It's actually just an AI version of my signature at the top right corner. It's really convenient and saves me a lot of time.
That doesn't make sense. Why would people actually want to see something about a president that has artificial intelligence as part of the project where something constantly appears in the corner?
I don't know, but for some reason people tend to like that.
Are any of you going to talk about the actual area here at all, or are you all distracted by something else?
Not like you jumped in, you could have brought it up at any time, but I suppose you do have a good point.
To be fair, we're kind of just getting past most of the enemies without any real trouble, so there's not much to talk about. As much as we're enjoying the game, I do think it'll be good to move on to a different game that has some more variety.
You do have a good point. For the next Final Fantasy game, we won't be increasing the experience we get by quite so much, as that does make this a bit too easy, with only a few exceptions here and there.
If the rest of this video is only 10 minutes, then I'm guessing the last fight won't be all that difficult.
That does sound correct. Honestly, I'm glad we've been able to make it this far without too many issues recently. We've all shown that we are capable members of the group.
I will still contend that Joe being the same job as me isn't as interesting visually, but he has been pretty effective. And Ben has been good about keeping us in good health, despite the lack of damage he does in most fights.
Thank you, Donald. I would have said something sentimental like I was trying to be more like you because I look up to your abilities, but I really don't think that at all.
I appreciate the acknowledgement, especially since I'm past the issues I used to have with thinking I wasn't useful in fights. Now I know I deserve my spot here.
Hey, this somehow doesn't seem right. We've been very congratulatory in this video so far. I feel like we'd usually have some sort of big disagreement by now, but that somehow hasn't happened.
Why? Are you trying to look for a reason that we should be getting upset at each other? We've been going just fine for now. I think we can go one video without something major going on that jeopardizes the connection we've slowly made across the series.
Oh no, that wasn't what I meant. It was more just me being surprised. I'm fine if we're able to go a full 20 minutes with only a few minor issues.
You're right, I apologize for getting ahead of myself. I didn't mean to imply you were just looking for some sort of problem.
You're fine, I just didn't want to give across the wrong idea. I know I usually try to be the mediator whenever we disagree, so maybe I do look for it in some ways.
That's all right. What's important is that we finish this video with everybody happy and nobody getting upset like people would expect us to.
Truthfully, I could only think of one thing that would truly divide us all, is if Joe was to tell another one of his stories from his childhood.
Hey, that's a great idea. I'll tell one right now.
This was a mistake.
It all started in the late 19th century. My good friends Ugly Joe, Harold, and me, Handsome Joe, were walking in the park. We noticed there was this abandoned factory where there used to have been knives and cannons manufactured. The three of us decided to go on an adventure inside to see what we could get. Unfortunately, since it was broken down, we couldn't actually do much in there, but we noticed there were some leftovers, knives, and a cannon. Can you guess what we did?
I'd prefer you not tell us, but I get the feeling you're going to anyway.
That's right, we decided to load the knives into the cannon. This way we could see if the cannon was able to still shoot things, and if the knives would stick to the wall. We put a lot of them all into the cannon and decided to light it. The only thing we didn't consider is that the cannon was aimed right at Ugly Joe. Do you want to know what happens next, or should I stop?
I've never wanted to not know the ending of a story more than I do right now.
We decided to fire the cannon. Miraculously, every one of the knives missed Ugly Joe and either stuck to the wall or just landed on the ground, leaving him unharmed.
Wow, that could have been much worse than it ended up being.
I'm not quite finished yet. The knives all missed him. But the sound of the cannon did alert a nearby colony of bats to the area, and they attacked Ugly Joe since they thought he caused it, making him known as Uglier Joe. The end.
That was somehow the least terrible of your stories, and it was still terrible, but nobody died by the end of it, so I guess that's a positive.
There's no way I can organically transition into that story into this, but this is the second part of the area. Once we got to the top of the tower, that cube we got in the last video allowed us to get up to this Sky Fortress area. The chime itself was what allowed us to get into the tower, so it's all coming together.
I don't think there's anything sensical about the chime, but the warp cube does make some sense. I did want to ask, though, is there anything special about this place?
There's the crystal and boss fight like normal, but there is something special, the adamantite, which will let us craft a powerful sword that will help us get through the last part of the game a little bit more easily. And there's also an optional fight against an enemy called the Warmech. It's the only hidden boss in this version of the game, but we won't be fighting it. It takes a long time to encounter typically. And there's really nothing that it would give us, even if we did.
It's good that we have somebody so knowledgeable about the game with us. Otherwise, we probably would be been stuck at part 2 or something. I know Donald had his strategy guide he was using, but it's still nice to have you here to guide us.
I appreciate the thought. It's nice to have people around me to give information to, so I can have an opportunity to teach people something that's important to me.
Hey, since we're going along actually being decent to each other, is now a good time to mention my book again, or is that in bad taste?
You know what, Donald? When you first tried to swindle me into buying it in those golf games, I told myself I would never get it. But since we're getting along so much better now, I have decided I will buy your book just to see what's actually in it.
Oh, thank you so much, Ben. This really does mean a lot to me. It's not sold as well since it came out a few decades ago. And it's nice that someone I know is interested in something that I wrote. I'll have it sent over soon. It'll probably arrive in a week or two. Maybe you can tell me about it when we're in the final part of the game.
That sounds great. I look forward to it when the mail comes in. I can't say for sure, but I might even post a review on my hit site, Daily Wire, where you can find all sorts of content that presents only the highest quality facts and logic.
That's odd how that turned into an advertisement halfway through, but we got the adamantite. We'll be showing this a bit later on, but first we have a crystal to reach.
Should I tell another one of my stories since we're not there yet?
I don't know how I can say this in a good way, but I don't think your stories will help us feel any better. Maybe if we lose to the boss fight, you can tell us in the afterlife, but otherwise, I think we'll be okay without another story.
All right, but if you change your mind, you know where to find me.
You know what, Joe? After I'm done with my review of Donald's book, I would be happy to have you on my show, Daily Wire, in case I haven't mentioned it yet, to tell a lot of your stories. It would be great for you to get some new viewers, and I feel like a lot of people could learn about you that way.
Oh, wow, that would be great. I usually tell them at my rallies, and most people end up sleeping by the end since their excitement just couldn't last the whole time. And when I tell people at the local elementary schools, they typically have the teachers ask how I got in there, and then I'm kicked out, but that sounds way better.
I'm beginning to regret my offer.
You're probably right about that.
Hey, Barack, since we're doing such a good job not getting upset at each other, I figured I'd give you an offer of my own. Do you want to come by to the White House and give a speech about Final Fantasy since you seem to enjoy it so much?
That would be fantastic. I'd be happy to come around since I'll be in the neighborhood soon enough, and since I don't want you to be left out, Donald. Can I help you get your campaign going with my audience? I think it would be interesting to help you out, and that would patch things up between us. I know we haven't been on the best terms. You occasionally say things like that I'm married to a man, I was born in Kenya, all sorts of objectively false things. But I think it would be nice to help you out and give you a fair chance against Joe, since you lost last time by a lot.
That's a very strange idea, and I'm not fully sure how to respond to all of that, but if it can help me beat Joe in the election, then I accept.
Can I veto that since I'm the president?
That is not something you can veto as president, but on a much more important note. We are about to fight the next fiend for the crystal. I hope we all are ready for this.
Honestly, everything else we've fought in here has been an absolute pushover, so I see no reason why this would be any different.
Yeah, we could get rid of this guy in less than a minute. There's no way he's beating the 4 Warriors of Light.
I think that's right. I don't even need to bring out my roast for this guy to fall apart.
I suppose not fighting the Warmech was a good idea. If we fought a lot of enemies just to encounter him, we probably would have made it all the way up to level 99 across the board, making this game even easier than it has been.
I think the battle would go from less than a minute long down to less than 30 seconds.
That does sound right. If anything, this battle shows us what we can really do when we get ourselves focused and overcome the fights together.
Well, that plus using Holy and Flare a lot, that will also help quite a lot.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. And Ben, you struck the final blow against him. I knew your magic was going to come in handy. That was one of the best fights we've had in a long time.
Ah, yes. That feels nice to have the best magic spell I have come in clutch at the end. Not that it was needed, since any one of us could have finished him off easily.
That's right, but what's important is that you proved yourself as a great member a long time ago. You didn't need this victory to show your worth. Barack, is there any other important thing that happens before this video finishes?
Actually, yes. The crystal have been restored, but we still have to use that adamantite we got earlier.
How exactly are we going to do that when we can't do anything with it ourselves?
If you remember several parts ago, we went into a place called Mount Duergar, and we're going to return there as one of the people inside is able to use it in order to create the sword.
I think, in my unbiased opinion, that it is only right that I, Donald Trump, the superior warrior, is the one who will wield the sword.
I don't really think that's unbiased, but it is true you've done well in our journey so far. I agree that you will be able to use it effectively.
I'm glad I have your blessing, not that I needed or was even going to ask for it, but I guess it's the thought that counts.
And I'm glad we resolved that peacefully. You two both deserve it. And something tells me we'll be getting another good weapon in the last video, so Joe won't be left out when it comes to powerful swords.
You mean Donald gets the Excalibur and I get the Excalibur too?
I'm pretty sure that's a different game. I think he just means there's another good sword for you.
Oh, that works too.
We're almost out of time. Thank you for all of those enjoying the series. We're almost at the ending, and it's been great so far.
Next time will be the last episode. See you then.
As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more.
Peace out, people.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Final Fantasy playthrough. I am here with my very good friends Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Ben Shapiro.
I am so excited to finish up the game today with my best friends here.
In case the viewers aren't aware, we put all of our differences aside in the last video, so we don't anticipate having any problems from this point on.
I think that's a very good sentiment to have. I would like to say that it's best if everyone has watched the previous 6 parts in the series for full context on our videos, especially the last one, as it will show all of our hardships and victories we've had throughout this journey.
Honestly, I'm happy we've buried the hatchet. I know that isn't always easy to do, especially since we politically can be very different, and even our ages are quite far apart for the most part.
What's important is that we've moved past that and developed a unique friendship that's been brought together and shown in video format while still providing entertainment to others.
That sounds very correct, and as tradition, Barack, will you do the honors of explaining what we will be doing in this final video for the series?
I would love to. We've entered the same place as we did in the first video where we fought Garland, except since we've restored power to the crystals, now we're able to access the rest of the area and are able to finish the game since there aren't any other places to go after this is done.
That sounds very good. It is a bit of a shame we won't be going through that special area that was put in the Game Boy Advance version of the game, but I suppose that's all right.
It does give its own unique reason to get the different versions of the game depending on how you look at it.
You know what? Since we're such great friends now, I think we should take the time to say great things about each other, Joe. Have I mentioned how much I enjoy having you as a president?
No, actually, it's usually mentioning something about me putting other countries as a priority, or telling me about how I'm not keeping the border secure when you didn't build the wall like you said.
Oh yeah, well, I'd like to take the time to say, after thinking about it for a while, that you have actually been doing much better than I thought. I predicted the entire country would have been burned to the ground, but that hasn't happened yet. So that must be good.
Thank you, Donald, and I must say yours was not a catastrophic mess, so that is also an accomplishment.
It was definitely an accomplishment, if I do say so myself. Ben, I have watched some YouTube videos of your speeches at college campuses, and although a lot of the moments are quite bad, you were never the cause of that, since you're always very fast on your feet with the epic comebacks.
I always make it my goal to show my superiority whenever I'm visiting people who are less educated than myself, which is nearly all people.
Yeah, you really show those people in their early 20s who's the master of owning people, just like we just destroyed that Death Eye that wasn't even a challenge.
Very true, and how can I forget about you, Barack? I must say your book that is just your face on the cover was very insightful.
Ah yes, writing A Promised Land was one of my best personal successes besides the whole presidency thing, so I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I don't know if I've said it enough, but I'm very glad we get to have this adventure together. And knowing we'll be playing another game in the series later on is even better. So I'll know I won't be alone when it comes to enjoying games and entertaining anyone who watches.
I'm glad you feel that way, Joe, and even though you and I have nothing in common really, you are a great addition to our team, and I'm satisfied with your contributions to us in and out of the game.
That makes me so happy that I want to tell one of my stories again. Is that okay with you all?
I'm hesitant to say yes, but at the same time, I have at least some faith it won't be so awful.
Okay, here it goes. There I was walking down the street one day when I decided to go to the grocery store. I had just won the presidency and treated myself to some apple juice to stock in the White House for when I get thirsty and some wine for the night as I was celebrating with Barack later that night. Then I passed by the local elementary school and felt so generous that I wanted to give them something. I didn't have my limo with me, so I had to borrow one of my friend Jeffrey Epstein's white vans and told the kids to get in and take what was in there. The only thing is I forgot all of the wine that was in there, so they took that by mistake. And all of the apple juice was left in my front seat. And that was the story of how I got banned from the local elementary school. So what did you think of the story?
Oh, yeah, Joe, that was a very riveting story. I was on the edge of my seat.
It's a thought-provoking tale in many ways.
It made me proud to be an American.
Oh, I'm so happy you all enjoyed it. I can tell so many stories like that if you want.
Yeah, sure, but on a more important note, this orb is special, as we will be running into 4 of them to rebattle the elemental archfiends again.
I'm honestly not that interested since we already did this. I'm just going to look at Ben's review of my book that he posted on Daily Wire. I've been so excited since I know he said he would in the last part.
Actually, you don't have to do that.
Hey, what's this? Why the Art of the Deal is the Tragedy of the 20th Century by Ben Shapiro.
I was really hoping you wouldn't read that.
After Donald desperately sent his book to me after hours of convincing me that his book is worth reading, I decided to do my charity for the year and skimmed through it. Nothing could have prepared me for how unimportant this book is. Apparently, getting 6 bankruptcies wasn't important enough to get its own chapter, and neither did his copious amounts of eating. This book made me want to live less, and you should not seek it in any format. The most enjoyment I had was throwing it into the fireplace so I could be warmer.
I only speak the truth. I have no regrets.
Hey, I thought it was very informative and will help me with my decision to not buy the book.
Nobody asked you, Sleepy Joe. Your presidency is as illegitimate as Barack's birth certificate.
Shut up,
and
you Oompa
probably
Loompa.
don't even know how to read.
That's not very kind, and I've been able to read for a good 5 years now.
Joe, that is not good at all. You should have been able to read much closer to your birth. But in all fairness, I can understand how cave paintings were difficult to decipher since that's all you had access to.
Can we please focus back on the game we were doing so well with our friendship and it's all falling apart?
No, I think it's a much better use of my time to focus on Ben's terrible review for an excellent book that he just didn't understand, because I didn't originally post it on Daily Wire, his site that nobody on planet Earth would ever subscribe to. Otherwise, he would have loved it.
Hey, I haven't even mentioned Daily Wire, my website where you can get all sorts of exclusive content from Very.
Yes, we know your stupid website that nobody but you cares about. You mention it every day, we get it.
I thought you wanted to keep us together, but I guess that's not correct after all.
When practically every other sentence is an advertisement, it gets a little bit irritating if you can imagine that.
You know what, while we're at it, I never actually read your book, Barack, and I bet nobody else has either.
Okay, you know what, Donald, no more mediating for me. Your presidency was almost as bad as your hairline.
Fake news.
And your ego is the only part of you that's larger than your gut.
Just as usual, nobody asked for your input, but you give it anyway.
Hey, that's not very nice of you to say. We shouldn't be acting like this.
Oh, would you look at that? Joe decided to actually be awake now. What a surprise. I'm surprised you've made it this far in the video without dosing off 6 times.
I was going to tell you all another one of my stories, but maybe I won't share it if you're going to be arguing so much.
Oh no, Joe isn't going to tell one of his terrible stories where literally nothing good happens. Whatever are we going to do with our lives now?
I'm sorry, Ben. Do you have some special story you want to tell us about, or do we have to subscribe to your site first?
You can subscribe to D's Nuts Joe, and yes, for a mere $13.99 per month, you can gain access to many informative videos about
How your wife regrets getting married to her husband who brags about his accomplishments more than they're worth.
That must sound bad, but thankfully you won't have to worry about that since you're married to a man and we all know it.
That is blatantly false, and you know what? That's just more right-wing propaganda that you and your followers share.
Nah, Barack, he's definitely right about that. I never noticed you refer to her as a lady.
Her title was literally First Lady, and not like you would have known you were too busy sleeping or eating ice cream, and that took up 90% of your time as vice president. I could have put Elmo in your spot and gotten more things done.
You should have put Elmo in, as he wouldn't have been sniffing children's hair at least.
Or maybe I should have put in the Cookie Monster, since then he and Donald could have a competition of who gets the most eaten in 20 minutes, since he already swallows them whole every day as it is.
Is anyone going to mention the fact that we're almost at the next boss fight in a moment?
No, I have to defend my honor against his slanderous claims that I don't eat healthy items, and then defend my title against the Cookie Monster to show him why they call me Donald Cookie Master Trump.
Literally nobody has called you that.
You know what? I think I have something that will break the tension. I mentioned in the last video I would help Donald enhance his campaign against Joe. So I'm going to give one of the early drafts for my speeches I was going to present.
This better be good or I'm suing.
Donald is widely known in the world for his wide vocabulary of words to describe people and things such as huge, horseface, kavfef, and many other things you have never dreamed of. If I had $1 for every time he's told me that he won the election, when he had no proof. Then
Fake
I could
news.
pay for the wall myself. He actually is someone who, despite what he claims, has no friends,
Fake
only
news.
people who haven't sued him, plead guilty of a crime that happened while working with him, or a combination of the two. He may have lost the last election by 7 million,
Fake
but
news.
if you cast a vote for him, then he might only lose by 5 million next time. Barack out. And that's the part where I make my exit while dropping the microphone.
Wow, that was a great speech. I think I'm going to vote for him now.
How was that the message you got?
Doesn't matter, Joe finally got his first cognitive brain function in about 80 years. So that's what matters anyway. Your speech is terrible and you're off the campaign staff for my rallies. I'll hire someone else who would do it like Mike Pence.
Wait, why would he do it? I thought your followers wanted to hang him at the Capitol.
Come on, we all know he would come crawling back to me if I asked.
Okay, fair enough. You're probably right on that one.
Fine, you definitely won't need my help to lose, since unlike you, I haven't lost an election.
I think they just really wanted me as vice president, and that's why they voted for us.
I was clearly the reason, and definitely not you. I'm surprised I even won when the people heard you were anywhere on the ballot.
Yet I got more votes in the 2020 election than you did, so maybe I'm right.
Factually speaking, Joe, or as I call it for myself, regularly speaking, since the amount of people increases each year, there are going to be more voters in general, so there will be more total votes. If we are judging which president would be the best based purely on votes, then, by that logic, George Washington is the worst, since there were so fewer people in that election. So that way of thinking is fundamentally flawed, just like you.
Oh, here we go, everyone. It's Ben back to spout a bunch of long sentences that make him sound smarter than he is, because what else would he do with his time?
If you're going to be like that, then I retract my offer to have you on my website, Daily Wire. I really shouldn't have offered it at all, since you would likely bore everybody, and then I deserve to have no subscribers.
Oh no, I'm not going to be on your website. Whatever will I do? It's not like I'm the president or anything, since that usually gets a few people watching my speeches, but I'll try to get over this terrible loss.
That's almost as big of a loss as the Kraken just had, since we beat him really quickly, right, guys?
Don't distract us from the main focus on showing you all that I'm the superior argumentative figure here.
What are you talking about? This video's title is called U.S. Presidents Play Final Fantasy Part 7. Finale. Not U.S. presidents fight each other while the game happens in the background.
Okay, maybe you're right. For the sake of the viewers, I will attempt to focus on the game a little bit more.
Honestly, I've not been focusing on the game so much since we started getting at it a few minutes ago. Can you give a quick recap on what's happened?
Sure, we collected a few items, but more important, fought the Lich, Merilith, and Kraken again. Though we're pretty good at getting through the regular enemies, so they barely caused any issues. Tiamat will probably be the same, but first we're going to get a powerful sword that will help us a lot in the next few fights.
I just saw we picked up the Masamune. Is that what you meant?
That is what I meant. This will be going to Donald, so Joe will get a chance to use the Excalibur that we got at the end of the previous part.
I appreciate it, but is the Masamune actually weaker than the Excalibur?
No, I'm pretty sure it's actually a little bit stronger. Not that it means much, since we're so close to the end of the game. There's only 2 important fights, and I'm sure Tiamat isn't going to give us much trouble.
I guess that's okay. I don't want to complain about getting the second most powerful item, so I'll be fine with what I have then.
Well, yes, that's true. But the main reason was because I don't know if you'd be able to use the strongest weapon well, as you are a bit senile and might have its strength go to waste.
Okay, what is with you and calling me senile? Obviously, it couldn't have been that bad since you let me be vice president for 8 years, so if I'm senile, then you're also at fault for supporting it.
Yeah, you get him, Joe? I love it when Democrats fight each other.
If you're going to be like that, Barack, then I am uninviting you to the White House to talk about Final Fantasy. You can find somewhere else to spread your useless knowledge.
Who are you to tell me about useless knowledge? It's not like anybody here needs your stories that last an eternity. And nobody has ever praised for being even slightly good. If there's one thing you're good at, is giving information nobody wants.
My stories are the best, and you know it, Barack. Speak up if you think my stories are great to listen to. Oh no, it's okay. One at a time, please.
Joe, your stories are somehow the only thing about you that's worse than your presidency. And that's saying a lot. If you just never spoke again, that would be fantastic.
What would be fantastic is if you stopped eating Big Macs so often, but I think McDonald's would go into bankruptcy just like you, so perhaps you can give it to the more needy instead, not like you've ever done anything charitable before.
Can you string together a set of words that actually make sense, please? You really are falling apart here.
Oh, hey, Ben, I forgot you were even here. I'm surprised you didn't leave to go check the statistics of your Daily Wire site. But then again, the viewership is probably at 0, so it's not like you'd be gone all that long.
My site is much more popular than that, and just for saying that I'm ordering a copy of your book online right now, it'll go really well as toilet paper, since that would be a better use for it than actually reading what you wrote.
I'm sure it's better than the right side of history. Nobody's even heard of that book before this moment right now?
Guys, I might be wrong, but aren't we almost at the last boss fight? I'm pretty sure we need to focus up instead of fighting. I know I shouldn't be talking since I've contributed to it a lot today, but if there's one time we can't just use auto battle, it's now.
You're right, Joe. I suppose our group isn't as flawless as it was earlier in the video, but it's time to take down Garland and make Cornelia great again.
Yeah, I think we all got a little carried away, and because of that, we were able to get by against the elemental archfiends, but we have to work together now.
You're all right. It's time we show Garland, the guy we haven't even seen since the beginning of the journey, why we were chosen to be the warriors of light.
I think it was because we pressed new game and that's how we were chosen.
Shut up, Joe. That's not what he meant.
Wait, are we back in time? When was that established?
I don't think it really was, but not that it really matters for the actual gameplay.
It really doesn't, but all that matters right now is making sure Garland never accomplishes his goals in the present and future.
I'm pretty nervous right now.
I'm not...
Get ready.
It's
time to knock him down.
Okay, guys, I'm not quite sure what we should do. Any suggestions?
You're never sure of what to do, but I got out my strategy guide again just for this moment. But since Barack is knowledgeable about this game, maybe we won't need it.
He can do a lot of damage really quickly, so protecting us is going to be the first strategy. We'll do that with Ben. Donald and Joe are going to use physical attacks for most of the time, while I'll use my best magic against him.
Ben, this time make sure that we're all healed a reasonable amount, while Barack can use haste on me to increase my overall damage.
With attacks like that, it's good we have a healer. And plus, 2 characters with maximum health does make things easier.
Even with this, he's still getting a lot of damage on us. I think we'll need to keep healing and maybe use some elixirs and full lives if it gets really bad.
I think you're right, but thankfully we're not there quite yet, so we have some time before we really have to start worrying.
That cyclone did a lot to us. I'm not sure if Ben's healing is able to keep up if he does that every turn.
Hey, since we have auto battle on again, it seems like it'll be fine to hit him with a few roasts. Mind if I step in?
Yeah, I think it'll be okay for a little while.
Will do. Hey, Garland Chaos, whatever your name is, you have 4 faces even your mother wouldn't love. I hope you go to sleep and don't wake up in the morning. You live alone in this castle 2,000 years ago because you are literally so awful that nobody wants to be alive at the same time as you. You're unlovable. If I had $1 for every time I wanted you to be in the same room as me, I would have $0. This whole area is breaking apart into the void because your ugliness is tearing away the fabric of space and time. I've got one more. Your mother was talking to me last night, and she wanted the Daily Wire from me, and she didn't mean my website. Get wrecked.
I don't know if that ended up helping anything, but we're not losing, so I suppose it didn't make us worse.
Yeah, I probably could have come up with better roasts in my sleep, which I do frequently.
We already know, but more importantly, I think now we're at a position where Ben can use Holy as none of us are about to die, but we'll reassess later if we need to.
It does feel good that we're not losing at this point since he's still doing a lot of damage. I think if we keep this up, we'll be able to finish him off without much more difficulty. At least the whole battle isn't automatic like most other ones in this place have been.
We're getting kind of low on health now. I think healing would be better at this point, despite the damage we're doing to him. Besides, Holy hasn't been doing as much as the other attacks.
As much as I don't want to admit it, you're probably right. I'll get that healing up in just a moment.
My instincts are telling me we should have healed earlier instead of attacking, since he's going to have more attacks that hit all of us.
If you mean that one, then you're right.
All right, good night, everybody. Time to go to sleep. I'm sure you can handle him from here.
No, Joe, unlike that other fight that you were turned to stone, this is a team effort. You may do less damage than I do, but you still have some value in here. I'm not sure where exactly, but it's around somewhere.
I'm going to use a full life spell on you, and then you'll be back up like it was nothing.
For now, Donald and I will keep the attacks going to make sure Chaos knows we're not holding back, just because one of us is down.
Oh, hey, guys, I'm back up. Did I miss anything important at all?
Not really, but getting you back up was more of a minor inconvenience than a major issue that crippled us.
Barack, are you doing what I think you're doing?
I'm hitting him with my Barak Blizz, Aga, again. It's been a while since I've done that to anyone.
I think we're almost done. He can't have that much more left to him, I imagine.
We're in a pretty good position, so there isn't much more we can do besides keep attacking like we have been.
It's been a fun time, everyone, but I think now is when we should finish off the last battle of the game.
You're right, everyone, Chaos. Consider yourself officially knocked down.
Does that mean we won?
Yes, Joe, obviously we won, mostly thanks to us. I mean, me primarily, but I guess you all helped out.
Before this is finished, I will say we did decide to speed up this ending scene, since the normal speed of the words are much slower than they are even now.
The time loop was severed at last.
The endless struggle that raged over Hunter Biden's substance problems has not ended.
Okay, that cannot possibly be what it said.
You're right, Joe, but the important part is we have overcome our journey and saved the world. I'm proud to have made it with all of you, even though there were some missteps along the way, more with each other than the actual challenges in the game.
I was able to prove my epic roasting skills.
I've been able to tolerate all of you a little bit more than I did when we started.
I stayed awake for most of the game time, or at least I think I did.
Not the best lessons I was hoping for, but I suppose that will have to do. As mentioned before, the next time we go into the series, it will be Final Fantasy IV. That will probably be coming out in a few weeks after this comes out, or if you're watching this far into the future, then it's already been out for a while.
Make sure you subscribe to Daily Wire Plus when you can. There's lots of great content there if I haven't mentioned it yet already.
No, actually, you should subscribe to President Central, since that's where you can watch these videos.
Oh yeah, I guess you can subscribe there too if you want.
Thank you all for watching. It's been a great time, and that will only continue even further into the future.
Yeah, make sure to vote for me in 2024, like, comment, and subscribe.
No vote for me instead.
Keep supporting the creators you watch when you can, not just us.
And with that, the game is done. Peace out, people.
But seriously, vote for me.